Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Today, we're going to address the power of naming. Is there power in a name? Um, there's a guy named Antonio Gramsci, an Italian, who wrote a book during the Second World War. So Antonio Gramsci was kind of like a political activist during the Second World War in Italy, and he was spreading his words and exercising you know his ability to persuade people. And he got locked up. He found himself in jail, and Gramsci was in denial for a good bit of time until he figured out, wait a minute, I'm not getting out of jail. He realized that he's going to die in jail. So Gramsci um, wrote a book to describe what happened to him. Like, how did he end up in that situation? And what Gramsci realized is that he got attacked with words. People labeled him as a criminal. First it was a word attack. He got labeled as a criminal, and then he ended up in the prison system. Well, that's kind of what we're looking at today. We're looking at um, the power of naming. I watched our brother Tariq's stage a rerun of the stage today, his space, where he was talking about the power of naming, and he said the bird turkey, was named by Europeans because a Turkish men have a little red sash or something, and the turkey had the little, I forgot what you call that thing, that little thing that hangs from their neck. So Europeans just took up upon the turkey already had a name, but Europeans just took it upon themselves to say that's a turkey. Now we're going to go deep into this today. We're going to go deep into this today because I want y'all to hear me well, and I might repeat myself because people are kind of slow coming in, and this is a point that needs to come up. That naming is absolute power. The ability to name is absolute power. Now, let me give a quick disclaimer. I'm not a biblical scholar, nor do I want to be, but I'm going to use an example from the Bible, the let's say King James version of the Bible, just to kind of prove my point. Um, what was Adam? What power, in according to the Bible, what power did God give Adam? God gave Adam the power to name. Listen to this closely, Black Americans. When you name something, you control its reality. You're playing with reality. I was talking to my dad when I was a little boy because I went to school in my youth. I went to school in extreme poverty in Birmingham, Alabama. And a lot of the dudes I used to play ball with had these names, you know what I'm saying? Like uh, um, Deontez, and Shantez, Corey, and they had like kind of like names that matched the environment. And I stuck out like a sore thumb with my proper English name. And I was like, Dad, why am I named this? And my dad was like, he said, son, I don't want anybody to discriminate against you when you apply for a job. So in essence, my dad was using the power of naming to play defense on me because in Birmingham, Alabama, the racism then and to some extent now is more stark, more extreme than the rest of the country, and um, a name can affect you. Harvard University did a study years ago, maybe close to 20 years ago, that showed that they had a list of names applying. They had some bomb ass resume, just totally bomb. And they put this on basically the same resume. They put black names that could be perceived as a black person, like Kendra and stuff like, Shantae and stuff like that. And they put names that could be interpreted as a Caucasian, Mary Elizabeth and stuff like that. And they did I forgot the exact statistics, but um, I think maybe one out the whole stack, one foundational Black American name got a call for an interview, and the overwhelming majority of the white sounding names at least got a call for an interview. That's what we're dealing with naming, young people. And I'm sorry, young people, half of y'all are my age. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and look at Dr. Howard Zinn, The People's History of the United States, page 14. Dr. Zinn said the English had killed some Indians, but the rest hid in the thick forest of the island, and the English went from one deserted village to the next, destroying crops, Stop right there. So the English landed in what is now America, just fucking killing people, right? But they weren't people. What were they called? Indians. Let's keep reading. Then they sailed back to the mainland and raided Pico villages along the coast, destroying crops again. None of the officers of that expedition in his account, one of the officers in that expedition gives his account, gives some insight into the multitudes along the water. He said came out running. Indians came out running in the multitude along the waterside, crying, what cheer, Englishmen, do you come for? They're not thinking we intended war. We went on cheerfully. Stop right there. So what you just heard is the English came to America just killing, cutting off heads, killing children, killing mothers, killing old people, killing handicapped people, and destroying the crops. How could you do that? How could you kill men, women, and children if you thought of them as a human? Well, there goes the naming function again. They weren't thought of as humans, they were thought of as Indians. So, with that, without further ado, Wani, did the Europeans name everybody Indians?
It seems like they've named quite a few people Indians. West Indians, Hindustan residents were named Indians. We've got people in North America that were named Indians. They said that some people around the South America region were Black Indians. They seem to be naming a lot of people Indians.
You think it's a function of power? Like I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
define you to conquer you?
Mm-hmm. They
Wow.
have named um, a lot of the animals.
Hmm.
And sometimes they'll name the animals themselves, like Thompson's gazelle. They want
Right.
to have power over everything, over nature. They've named the months of the year. I don't want to go through all of them, but January, Janus, the Roman god of beginnings and transitions. February is a Latin word. March, named after Mars. May, Greek goddess Maya, and so on and so forth. They've named a lot of the astrological, if not all of the astrological signs, uh, the days of the week, everything that we are using all day, things we don't even think about. They have named them, and they have named almost everything associated with Africa and actually the world around us. And like I said, a lot of the species, um, it's just because of that Greco-Roman Empire, they had a lot of control, and I think that that is a spell. It's a spell. But luckily, as a Black American, uh, you can change your name if you feel that you don't want that name and you're under a spell. You can. I like my name. I'm going to keep it. Um, but one thing that we have a place where we can have a fresh beginning and an ability to change our names if we want to. So that's um, what I like about this country. That's one of the things you can change your name.
Yeah, yeah. Wani brought up something very powerful. What's powerful about that is naming something creates reality, and it implies ownership. So if you go back to the Dr. Zen's Howard Zen's text I was reading, Dr. Zen says so. The war with the Pequot, and now those of you who are curious, that's Pequots. That's a Native American tribe in the Northeast, the Pequot. It may be Pequot. I may be saying it wrong. So the quote: the war with the Pequot began. Massacres took place on both sides. The English developed a tactic of warfare developed earlier by Cortez and later in the 20th century, even more systematically deliberate attacks on non-combatants for the purpose of terrorizing the enemy. So these motherfuckers around here killing people that don't even have a weapon. Um, how do you get your men to do that? You name them Indian. See, Indian psychologically for the English was less than human in their view. The same thing with the word nigga. Um, I was watching a movie years ago where it was said that nigga means guilty. You're dehumanizing people. This is done in war all the time. When you declare war on somebody, what do they become? Your enemy. How do you treat an enemy? A relationship is designed, is created when you call somebody an enemy. Y'all become oppositional. You know what I'm saying? Or the little boys now say ops. That's my op. That creates a relationship. Why am I even bringing this up in this space? I'm bringing it up in this space because foundational Black Americans, y'all did something real powerful. We did something real powerful. No, not long ago. We renamed ourselves. That was an extreme power play. Because, like our brother Tariq Nasheed said in a space the other day, I was driving home. I had to pull over. I had to listen to that. He said that African American was a name that was prescribed to us. And what type of attack did the term African American do? African American took us out of our land based identity. America belongs to us. It belonged to us first. And secondly, what did it create? It created a false equivalency between the Black American and an immigrant. We ain't never been no motherfucking immigrant. But African American says, hey, I'm an immigrant like you. We were attacked. Attack, like Antonio Gramsci says, begins with words. And likewise, defense begins with words. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing said something very interesting, very fascinating. Dr. Welsing said that in the system of white supremacy, she equated the world with a chessboard. Um, on a chessboard, the white piece moves first, and the white piece plays offense, defense. So the white piece will hit you throw a rock, hit you in the mouth with the rock, and then hide its hand and say, "I never saw a rock. What rock you mean?" And the black side of the chessboard gets hit with the rock and then counterattacks. So when you look at that analogy and you apply it to the naming of ourselves, that's exactly what happened with foundational Black American. That was a defensive move because the white power structure, the white supremacy power structure, supremacist, excuse me, power structure named us African American. I don't remember. Wani, do you remember the old folk walking around calling themselves African American? My grandmama and them never
No,
said that.
no, not at all.
Yeah. Yeah, my grandmama and
We
them said,
never did. We
go
never
ahead.
did. We never did call ourselves African American. That was always something that they chose to use as like a formal name in, academia, in writing, and in real life. I've never heard anyone use that in real life. Now, I have heard some cornballs on here saying that, but I think that they are just used to having to say it like that. Maybe they work in academia and they have to do pronouns and stuff and they just relent it. But one of the things that I resent about the Europeans' position is that besides naming things, things can't exist unless a European person says it does. So if
Oh,
a Japanese person says, hey, look at this crazy fish, this isn't extinct, like the coelacanth, they caught that. And they tried to say, hey, this is living, this isn't extinct. And the Europeans said, nope, it's extinct, go away, we don't want to hear about it. And when the Batwa, the pygmies, described a gorilla, they said, nope, there's no such thing. They don't grow that large. And they were they had naturalists to go out there, European naturalists, and they told them the same. Nope, sorry, it's not real unless we say it's real, and then we put a name on it. So they really are belittling everybody on the planet, including Asians, Indians, and other types. There's only certain types of Europeans that are even allowed to name these things and say that these things exist. And as a result, even other Europeans are told to shut up, it doesn't exist, despite all the descriptions and even these so-called cryptid animals. being written up in magazines and described by other people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's ridiculous, Awani. Well, y'all heard what Wani just said. She said that European academics um, create reality. I'm paraphrasing you, Wani, by saying that telling indigenous people, the example I thought about when Wani was talking about that is there's a, now this is gonna sound crazy to y'all, but prove it wrong. There's a long story of a fucking brontosaurus that exists in the Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, in that rainforest. There's a story of a dinosaur. They call him Summit. The name's escaping my head. Maybe
I
one
have
of,
some names.
what's the name?
There's one animal called a Mokil Mabimbe,
Mbembe.
eater,
That's it. That's it.
eater.
Mbembe.
It's called eater of the top of palms. And then they have a Chippewa water monster, another one called Emila Natuka, killer of elephants. And this other one is called Conga Magatos, overwhelmer of boats. Now, these animals have been described by European naturalists. So this is not crazy pygmies running around just making stuff up. They have been described in magazines from mostly in the 40s, and these were by game wardens who wrote books about this. It's called A Game Warden Takes Stock, and he describes this animal as well. There's another book in 56 and another one in 58, and Illustrated London News in 58. And even these European men were dismissed because the right European man has to see it and say that it's true. And by the way, one of those guys went over there and named one of those animals after himself,
Wow.
as I said before.
Yeah, it's so frustrating, but thank you, Wani. You're so brilliant. Mbembe, that's the name of the thing. So listen up, ladies and gentlemen. There are very credible tales of Mbembe, a fucking brontosaurus, the eater of palms, that long neck eating palms, just chilling, walking through the Congo rainforest. Now, Europeans avoid that area in the rainforest because there's a parasite, a rare parasite in those waters that, this is gonna be graphic, but it looks for it goes immediately for any type of orifice, and it can get through the opening in your private parts, or your mouth, your eyes, and it just eats you alive. And so Europeans are like terrified of getting in that water. But there are many accounts of Batwa, the Twa, drawing pictures of Mbembe, just a dinosaur walking around. And academic canon refuses to acknowledge it. They say it's extinct. I've heard stories, Wani, of a pterodactyl being somewhere over there. There's allegedly
Yes,
a,
so yes, I think I may have named it, but I don't know. I gotta
yeah.
check.
The point of what I'm saying is, the European, Dr. Sharshi McIntyre said we exist inside of a European nightmare. The Western culture, as it were, in academia is European culture, and it's all about imagination. You can imagine your reality, and what the European has done is create words, to weaponize words to create a reality that fits his power dynamic. A good example of that is the word uh, sphinx. So sphinx is that thing in Egypt, right? That's a Greek word. Sphinx means sphinx, like a something that strangles you to death. Sphinx is negative. Think about it, like your butt. That's a sphincter, right? Sphinx, something that's basically they call it a butthole. Um, Okay. Well, what did the Kemites call? What did the Egyptians? Egypt is another word that's not ours. But what did the Kemites, or Egyptians, air quotes, call the Sphinx? The ones who designed it called it Horamaket. Horamaket means Christ on the horizon, like the Christ, the Christ. And it's deep. When you know that, you start to see the Egyptian or Kemetic understanding of mathematics, of the space-time continuum, the understanding of possibly space travel, because this quote unquote sphinx or asshole is what the Greeks are saying. It's actually called Christ on the horizon. There's a meaning there. If you look at the head of the sphinx, that's the head of a man or woman, a black man or woman, and it's on top of a lion's body. That has meaning. That's talking about a place in space, motherfucking time, called the Age of Aquarius, where Aquarius is over Leo. If y'all look at a star map of the location of the zodiac, it's not a horoscope. It's a location in space time. Aquarius is opposite, is on the other side of Leo. Is if Aquarius is at 12 o'clock, Leo is at 6. So the Kemites, the Egyptians, were saying this is a place and time in the space time continuum when we're in the age of Aquarius, and the age of Aquarius is over Leo. That demonstrates mathematical mastery. That demonstrates a possibility of space travel. The Europeans gave you a hint when we went to space. They said a small leap for man, a giant leap for mankind. Think about that. They were saying that man, i.e., the original man, has done this before, but mankind has just learned how to go to space. This shit's deep when you look at it. Capone, what's on your mind?
Oh, what's going on, brother? No, because I was into astrology, back in the days when I was younger. Sister Wani, how y'all doing? Lovely to see y'all this afternoon. But yeah, who remember when Pluto was a planet?
Yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Our reality has been defined by these people for so long, and I'm glad we were able to do it ourselves, like you mentioned earlier, with the whole FBA lineage definition. You know what I mean? Because it's time for us to put some reality in the world ourselves, and I land on that.
I love it, Capone. I have a family member who and this is years ago when I worked at Smithsonian in DC. I'm not gonna mention his name, but he's a retired police officer now, but he was a police officer in 2007 in Maryland. And he used to sit down with me and brag on he got a new position where he was on a task force um, that sat around and just listened to rap all day, to try rap music, to try to decipher what the rappers were actually talking about. Like he was black, but it was a bunch of white cops sitting around trying to figure out what are they talking about. And they were trying to figure out what the rappers were talking about to do some raids and to bust them. And that's evidence that names are important. If you have your own link, what am I trying to say? If you have your own lingo, you have your own naming process, you have your own language, it's harder for your enemies to attack you. Ethiopia is a really good example of that. If you look across Africa, Africa has been just straight ravaged by the European, just straight finessed, jugged. I'm not even gonna say it was finesse; it was straight jugged by the European. But Ethiopia is, although it's had its battles, is still pretty much intact. It's Ethiopia's war scarred. It's scarred up, but it's still intact. And why is Ethiopia intact? Ethiopia's intact because the Ethiopians refuse to give up their language. They refuse to give up their names, and there's power in that. FBA law. What's on your mind?
What's going on, family? How you doing, Professor and Wani? Y'all
Yes,
doing all right?
sir. Yes, sir.
Look, I just wanted to just say one thing. When you talk about naming, the power in naming, I think about how they use Europe and call it a continent. Just because you named it,
Woo!
they really
Yes.
fool people to believe that it's really a continent when it's not.
Preach. You still there, bro?
Yeah, yeah, that's all I
Uh,
want to say.
Man, that was a good one. So if you look at Europe, guys, Europe is an archipelago by their own definition. An archipelago is somebody can look that
And
up.
they won't, it is, and they won't admit that. They also call it the British Isles. They don't call it island because they want to give it the appearance of being something different than an island.
Right, an island's isolated. An island is small. An island is unprotected. We're getting deep with this. That's interesting, Wani. The British Isles. That's so fascinating. Why is that fascinating to me? Because when you said an island, you know what I thought about? I thought about Dr. Frances Cress Wells, and when she talked about alienation, she said the problem with European culture is one of alienation. Um, Dr. Welsing says on page 19 of her masterpiece, quote, one of the most disturbing phenomena of Western culture, Western means white, if y'all don't know, has been a man's sense of estrangement from the world he himself has made or inherited. In a word, man's alienation from himself and others. The theme of alienation of modern man runs through the literature and drama of two continents. It can be traced in a continent as well as a form of modern art. Basically, what Dr. Welsing says is Europeans are isolated from alienated from the natural flow of things, and that sense of alienation is a vulnerability. And to counter that alienation, they come up with narratives to make people to kind of like make people not see that that weakness. And I thought about that one when you said the British Isles. Their island is alienated, but Isles sound different. You know what I'm saying? It's all
It
in the words.
does. It does. Two more points. Animals like leopards, cheetahs, and gorillas were not even discovered in the 1860s. The European was still saying, nope, that doesn't exist. It can't get that big. There's nothing like that. I find it interesting that these animals that the Batois or pygmies say that they see are actually represented in their environment as fossils. So they do have sauropod, stegosaurid, and petrosaur fossils around those areas. So, and now I'm going to go up to um, the British Isles, since it's not the British island. I'm going to
Hmm.
go up there and talk about some of the animals that are up there as well that they refuse to admit exist. But continue.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Dr. Wilson says we're talking about alienation. Dr. Wilson said all are believed to have derived from one form of the following states: European isolation. She says social isolation, self estrangement, and a sense of powerlessness, sense of meaninglessness, a sense of more normlessness, and cultural estrangement. So Dr. Welsing is arguing that the Northern European culture was isolated from the rest of the world. We know this because in Kemet or Egypt, whatever you want to call it. I call it Kemet. What Kemet was the cultural center of the planet where everybody went to learn everything. So Dr. Welsing is basically positing that the Europeans saw that there was a lot of culture going on in Kemet, and they felt powerless. So what happens a couple thousand years later? Europeans take over Kemet and they go around renaming. That's not Horamaket. That's not Christ on the horizon because the Egyptians didn't know anything about math and science and space time continuum. No, they're dumb. We're the smart ones. That's a sphinx. That's a sphinx. In other words, that's a butthole, right? That's a pyramid. That's not a pyramid. The Egyptians never called it a pyramid. You want to know what they called it? They called it a mirror. Mirror. And the Russians know this because they named their space station Mir. Does that imply that the pyramids were some type of space traveling machine? I don't know, but it's interesting to think about. It's all in the words, ladies and gentlemen. That we took a giant first step, a giant first leap in naming ourselves Foundation. We got to thank our brother Tariq for that because that was brother Tariq. If you listening, that was brilliant. Foundational Black American can't be remixed. Rock solid, and it says what we are. We're the foundation of this country. We're black and we've been here the whole time. Deal with it. And like people have been saying, people are losing their mind behind FBA because you can't control it. Why? Because name, like I asked in the second part of the EQ essential question, is there power in naming? I'm gonna answer that. Hell yeah. I'm gonna argue that naming is absolute power. Remember, in the Holy Bible, the power that God, according to that text, the power that the Creator gave to Adam was the ability to walk around and name things. You're smart. you're dumb. Um, what do they say in these rooms? I have a high IQ. That shit drives me crazy. I went to one of the best schools of graduate schools of education in the educational psychology in the world, and I learned that IQ is there are multiple intelligences. Y'all know that it's more than one intelligence, and IQ is one of the least IQ is connected with the multiple intelligence called information processing, which basically means you can remember random ass facts. Well, here goes the problem, ladies and gentlemen. In this world, in this universe, facts change, right? The medical procedures that were done in 1960 are obsolete. Now, you go in there and try to do give somebody heart surgery from 1962. If you want to, you're going to lose your medical license, because facts change. So certain groups of people are good at remembering random facts. And what I've noticed is black Americans and really black people in general um, have different intelligences than we don't have time to remember a bunch of garbage, a bunch of nonsense. We're trying to solve problems, you know what I'm saying? And also, we're trying to do things with the least amount of words possible. Wani, I think I heard you say that. And, if not, forgive me, but um, Tariq is I think he said that. But we want to serve. We're looked at as stupid, but we're actually brilliant. Where that be? Where that be? That's asking where is it going? You're saving time, you're saving energy. Whereas other cultures will say, "Can you tell me when the bus will arrive? How many seconds did you waste? How much energy did you just waste just talking all that shit? Can you please, pardon me? Can you please tell me when the bus is going to arrive? That's so much
Sir,
time, sir." Yes, exactly. As opposed to where it be? Right, strict.
actually, it's funny because certain types of Europeans abbreviate stuff like that, and they're considered ignorant, but they want people to just babble on and on. The people are literally using two-thirds more words than are necessary, and when we speak, um, we convey words and ideas with fewer words than other dialects. That's what linguists say.
Right, right. And it's mathematically, it's called simplification. You get into the quickest route from A to B is a straight line.
Mhm.
Where it be, man? Where it be?
I
That's
remember I was
Go ahead.
writing with some foreigners, and it was only supposed to be like 3 paragraphs, and they sent me back a mini book. And I was like, why are you writing all this? But that's really the way they talk. And that's just, I don't know why they talk like that. Even when it's translated from someone from Kenya, maybe someone from Ethiopia, definitely people from Asia, it always comes back with excessive talking. When I was speaking to some Israelis, they were saying that they don't have as many words for things. So we may have multiple words for one thing, and they're like, English is hard because why do you have all these words for this one thing, but we only have one word for that one thing? I wish I could come up with an example. But that's beside the point. The point is that languages are different. Some people have 3 words for something, some people have one word, but whatever it is, the way that we have used our input on English, we have abbreviated it. We do get to the point, and other groups simply don't.
Right. Right. Well, Wani, I'm gonna take this a step further. It's not necessarily language. You saying you don't know why they use so many words. Well, language is connected with thought processes. Let's get deep as hell right quick. There's a story, the story of Atlantis in Lemuria. Um, According to Edgar Casey, a clairvoyant. Well, shit, I guess I got to tell the whole story now. There's a clairvoyant, a guy with a rare talent of connecting to the collective unconscious. You know what Jung said is in everybody's brain. Um, this guy had an ability to go into a trance-like state and become connected to the collective unconscious. And anyway, this guy was interviewed by Sigmund Freud, and Sigmund Freud asked him one question: "What happened to Atlantis?" Isn't that an interesting question to ask? And Edgar Casey said there was an advanced society called Atlantis with flying cars and shit. powered by crystals. And there was another society called Lemuria. They were operating in perfect balance until they got met. They met a group of people called the Sons of Belial, and they got corrupted, and a war broke out. That's the short version. Well, back to that point. Um, after allegedly after Atlantis and Lemuria just fucking blew each other to pieces, out of the rubble was a there were survivors of Atlantis. They're referred to as the seven sages. Some of y'all have heard that before. Well, the seven sages got together and said it's our duty to rebuild the world. So they ended up having a conversation, and they all went their separate ways to rebuild the world. Now, the sage that went to Egypt was named Thoth, Thot. But I hear a lot of names. I think our brother Mikhail called him Tutmosis. But you
Thoth?
Thoth, yes, that's what
Thoth
I
has another name. It hurts your teeth to say, but
Thoth,
Thoth,
yes. He has
Thoth
a
has
lot.
a.
He has
They're gonna make us get a lisp.
uh he has another name. The Europeans, the Greeks renamed him Hermes, Hermes. I thought, I read that the Egyptians called him Thoth. Well, Thoth, and I may be wrong. If y'all know more about that, let me know, because Brother Mikhail said other things. Forgot what Mikhail said. But anyway, y'all know who I'm talking about. He looks like a Ispis bird. He's a man with a beak, a long beak. Him. So Thoth went to Egypt to rebuild and teach the people how to rebuild society, allegedly. And Thoth warned them, warned the Egyptians. He said a group of people is coming. They're called Greeks. He says, do not learn this language. Do not learn Greek, because pure language is not about talking, Wani. It's about thinking. You think how you speak. And if you corrupt your speech pattern, yeah, you do. If you corrupt your speech pattern, guess what you corrupted? You corrupted your thought pattern. I was talking to my students today about how confusing English is. We got several words that mean, we got one word that mean like several different things. How confusing is that? I talked about the word too. Two can mean I'm going somewhere. Two can mean me as well. Or two could mean the number two. That's crazy. But Thoth, the Atlantean, says something very insidious. You have to remember that English is a mix of Greek. English is a is kind of like a gumbo of different European languages. It's gumbo, but including Greek. And Thoth the Atlantean said that Greek, basically he implied that the intent behind Greek language, European language, is to confuse you so you can be controlled. So once you get into that language pattern, you can be manipulated because you think a certain way, and the pattern is not pure. Therefore, it can be compromised. Take that. Nas, what's on your mind?
Damn, that was deep. That was wow. My mind is blown by that one. That's very interesting. But I wanted to speak to a point you made earlier and tie it back into language. You talked about how the Europeans are out of sync with nature. They do things that's not, not in sync with Mother Nature. And I was just thinking about how you was just saying how they like to throw a bunch of words in and make word salad and things like that. And I noticed that a lot of white people tend to be very long-winded. Like when they speak, they want to throw in a lot of details and talk very long, and they gotta enunciate every word. Whereas with a black person, we like to shorten and keep it quick, get straight to the point a lot of the times. And
Right.
that speaks to being in tune with nature, because one of the laws of nature is is the path of least resistance.
Yep.
Nature always wants to take a shortcut and achieve the goal, whatever it is. And I just feel like that's a connection of being in tune with nature, the path of least resistance. And that also shows a certain level of intelligence as well. You spoke about that. Like they think a certain way and they think that's the only way to think. But we flow in whatever works best. And I think that also shows our intelligence as well.
Right, right. You brought up some. Let's talk about power name. I'm glad you brought that up, Nas. Power naming. The European, though the Atlantean said, "Don't speak Greek. Don't do it." But the Europeans, when they came to Kemet, they renamed language itself. The language of the Kemites or Egyptians, the stuff, that beautiful stuff you have written on the walls that I got tattooed all over my arm, is was the Europeans call it hieroglyphics. I haven't even bothered to find out what the fuck hieroglyphics mean because I don't care. But I know the Kemites call it Medu Neter, and it doesn't have a bunch of excess words in it. It's MDW Medu Neter or Nator, NTR, MDWNTR, Metanetter. And what does Metanetter mean? It means the language of God. And if you look at it and you listen to it, you know what the Kemites were saying, Nas, just like you said, nature. It Metanetter, it's very familiar, I mean very similar to Mother Nature, Metanetter, Mother Nature. They looking at nature and learning from nature, learning the secrets of nature. Y'all don't want to go down a rabbit hole with me, ladies and gentlemen. I used to teach physics. And if you're humble and patient and caring and you spend your time around plants, the mother nature will start revealing secrets to you. Oh, I'm telling too much. Uh-huh. But Europeans in their laboratories, it's a good book called The Dancing Woolies, the dancing WULIS. I taught Newtonian physics for 2 years, and I tried to understand quantum physics, and it made me feel like a straight up idiot. A lot of people recommended Dancing Woolies because it's a book that kind of breaks quantum physics down to a kindergarten level as best as it could. But in Dancing Woolies, it talks about an experiment that was done with a particle, a quantum particle, and the Europeans were trying to study this quantum particle. And every time they looked at the particle went out, almost like it was hiding. And the European scientists were like, "What the hell? When I look at this particle, it's going away." And they put a camera up and turned it back to it, it lit up. When they looked at it, it went away. You know what I'm saying? They did that, variations of that. But in Dancing Woolies, it basically says that on some quantum level, um, energy is aware, is conscious, and Mother Nature will not reveal her secrets to somebody who's going to use it to blow the fucking galaxy up. Isn't that interesting? So
It
Europeans, go
is.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's interesting that a great civilization that Egypt built would allow the Greeks to rename parts of it and a lot of it. Like the Nile is a Greek term, Nilos. Why are they naming your stuff when they came over to get information from you? And why would
Hello.
you stick? I don't understand why these names stick when people already have names. So, why would India, an ancient group of people with a very deep culture, even though I make fun of them on the timeline, but they do have a very deep spiritual culture that they're not practicing. And why would they allow foreigners to come in and change their name from Hindustan to India? And it sticks. They don't push back and say, no, 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 no. That's not our name. No one ever says it's not our name. They just, the 99% of people that are named by these people do not push back and say that's not our name. So I wanted to say that when we were talking about speech, my father always said real business only takes a few minutes and BS takes all day. And
All
it
day.
does. So when people say Black Americans only speak one language, these are the languages that we've been speaking: Gullah Geechee, Louisiana Creole, Afro Seminole Creole, and Tutnese, which is a secret language developed by the enslaved. Um, our language style is spoken all over the planet. People are saying things that we say and they don't even speak English. They're singing our songs. You can go somewhere like Central Europe or Eastern Europe, and they're over there playing the OJs, and you're like, these people do not even speak English, but they know that song. The middle of Mongolia, some random place, they're playing Stevie Wonder. And it's bizarre. They like it even though they don't know what it's saying, because these people literally did not speak English. So we have really impacted the globe. Now, one of
You,
the things, go ahead.
no, no, no. Go ahead, finish.
I was just going to say, one of the things about Black Americans, um, most people speak to us in English. So if we want to practice our language, like say we go to France and we know how to speak a little French, usually they don't want us to, but they do want Europeans to speak French. But when it comes to Black Americans, they want to speak English to us. So keep in mind that in terms of us speaking other people's languages, um, we have impacted English. Number one, it hasn't been around that long, and we've come in on the middle of English, the tail end of Middle English. So we have got a lot of input in this language. Now, if you are South American, Central American, Asian, Oceanian, Middle Eastern, African, Caribbean, they all speak official European languages. So they can't say anything about Black Americans speaking English. We speak it and influence it. Speakers of native African languages, Greek, Turkic, Scandinavian, Russian, and Hebrew, they all have to speak English or something to conduct business. We also have created these subcultures like jazz, where we've created a whole lot of different terms that created our future music genres, and they are used all over the world. The word cool referred to a calm and collective state of mind, used by Lester Young.
Yeah, yeah, Wani. Exactly. Why? Let's look at this from a certain standpoint. This is what I'm about to say is very dangerous, but it's scientific. It comes from Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. We're looking at a connection with nature. Wani brought up the good point that the world follows around foundational American music and culture. Why? Even when they don't speak the language. Why? Because they get caught in the rhythms. The rhythms are powerful. They're persuasive. So how are we connecting to rhythms that are not perceived by certain European cultures? Well, I'm glad you asked, ladies and gentlemen, because according to Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, quote, the neuropeptide, I like that word, neuropeptide melanin is the absence of this black pigment in the skin and other aspects of the nervous system critically impairs the depth of sensitivity of the nervous system and the ability to tune in to the total spectrum of energy frequencies in the universe. Wow. Dr. Welsing said basically that this material in our nervous system, in our skin, is the last little piece that, like a plug going to the wall, connects us to the collective unconscious, to the greater, to the all, where we can perceive, wait, man, don't do that. Don't kill that bird. That shit wrong. Kill it if you're gonna eat it, man. Whereas people who don't have it just say, what's wrong with killing? It's mine. I'm human. I'm better than everything. Let's kill. Dr. Wilson says the deficiency of sensory awareness sets the stage for the absence of harmony. I'm gonna say that shit again. Dr. Wilson says, "quote This deficiency of sensory awareness sets the stage for the absence of harmony, which she calls the chaos and destruction, which is evil." Remember, evil is live spelled backwards. Dr. Welson says that people that don't have that neuropeptide are out of sync. They're out of harmony with nature, and they're going opposite to the goals of nature. It makes sense if you think about it hard enough, but I digress.
So, back to naming things and refusing to acknowledge things, let's talk about dragons. Yeah, according to the European, they don't exist. So, Loch Ness Monster doesn't exist. Dragons and serpents, giant serpents and giant worms do not exist. They will not acknowledge them. Yet, they recorded them in a book called Historia Britannium. These all of these things were recorded, and they have all these witnesses, which became these men became the big men of the town because they were battling these worms. Well, they called them. It was really like probably dragons or something. And the list of places in the British Isles that have fought, slayed dragons, rode on worms, fought them, and slayed serpents is astronomical. You would not believe this list of men who said that they fought these in front of the town and they became the big guy in the town, became popular in those towns. Now, they also have some interesting maps that say this part between the north and south of Scotland faces a vast sea, which is the Atlantic, where there is nothing except the dwelling place of monsters. Oh, that's odd to be on a legitimate map. One other point. They did a lot, like I said, lots of stuff about dragons in their lore, in their history books, all over the place. One thing to note, there's a place in Dorset, England called the Jurassic Coast. And fossils of all of these animals, like the plesiosaur, megalosaurus, are on this coast. And these are the same animals everyone is complaining about. The Loch Ness monster, these dragons that they've been slaying, these giant worms that they've named the towns after. And these fights with these large animals have made these men popular in the town and made their families, well thought of and wealthy. I just thought that was interesting, and yet they will not acknowledge them, and they will not name, they won't put a name on it. So if they say these things don't exist, it doesn't matter if everyone sees it and everyone writes about it in ancient history, and that you actually have the fossils of these things on your coastline. That doesn't matter. It also doesn't matter how many crazy things you see in the sky. They're just going to say, nope, you didn't see anything. And they're not going to admit that strange vehicles may be flying overhead. They'll do it when they're ready, but we are not allowed to have our own reality according to them. So if I see something, this is my personality. If I see something that the European says doesn't exist, I don't care. I saw it and that's it. I don't need any other backups. I don't need for them to verify it. I don't need to go to a conference about UFOs. I don't need to go to a cryptid seminar. If I saw it, I saw it. And that's the end of it.
Yeah. Looking back at, I'm coming to you now, but looking back at what Dr. Welson said with the neuropeptide melanin, she said that certain groups of people are incapable. Let me say it again: incapable of perceiving certain things. Right? So why would you let somebody who, according to Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, is incapable of seeing some shit telling you what the fuck you saw? This is we the ones acting crazy. Go ahead, Nas.
I just wanted to jump in on what Wani was saying. Speaking of creatures that white folks refuse to acknowledge, there is a lot of interesting lore behind the connection between dinosaurs and dragons, and it even connects to Christianity, where Jesus used to be represented as a lamb. He was the sacrificial lamb, and he in his myths of brave men going to lure out dragons with lambs, and then they would go and slay it. So that just speaks to other like creatures that white folks used refuse to acknowledge, and like different historical facts that they try to hide and keep away from what I'm saying the masses.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I gotta weigh my words with the dragon because I heard from I got to weigh my words, man. I heard I was watching an episode of Joe Rogan, and they said that some pilot was flying in Colorado over restrict. He got caught in a storm. It was a private pilot got caught in a storm and was getting warnings. You're in restricted airfare. You're in restricted airspace. Turn around and you will be shot down by a military organization. and he couldn't didn't have time to do it. And he said he flew over the woods and he saw a dragon in a cage being like weaponized. So we don't know what the fuck's going on, man. We don't know. Um,
Wait, he saw a dragon in a cage?
yeah, he said this is his testimony. He saw a
How big
gigantic.
do you think it was?
Well, he said it was a gigantic crate with a dragon, what appeared to be a dragon in it, in the and a I'm gonna say a military organization was trying to weaponize it. They were feeding it or something. But that's what he said he saw. Yeah, we don't know what's going on, man. There's so many things that are kept out of our um out of our you know realm of knowledge. There the great late great Dr. Sharshi McIntyre. I'm gonna have to do a space on her one day because she's not praised enough. Nobody knows who she is. Sharshi McIntyre um posited that Europeans created a reality that they can dominate, and like Dr. Welson just said, like I said from Dr. Welson's book momentarily a moment ago, um, the our reality, our perceivable reality, is greater, has greater potential than other groups who don't have our own level of perception, right? Well, Dr. Sharshi McIntyre basically argued that that's why the European makes reality so low and brutal, is because that's a reality that that is easily perceived by, you know what I'm saying, perceived and dominated, whereas our realities are on a plane that are higher thought, higher functionality, spiritually and intellectually. And if basically what Sharshi was saying is, if we collectively, if we step into our zone of understanding harmony and reality, other groups just couldn't follow us into it. They couldn't handle it. They wouldn't even know what to do. So I hope that one day we figure it out. But I digress.
Want to talk about leprechauns?
Yes.
I want to know where to go at.
So, so there's something about a rainbow in a pot or something. Now, this is also interesting. For something that doesn't exist, it sure has a lot of names: elves, brownies, pixies, cities, leprechauns, sprites, hobgoblins, fays, duendes, gremlins, goblins, kobolds, imps, lutins. There's more.
Toddlers.
Hobbits. Hobbits. And I'm not sure what is going on with these individuals. They seem to be, since we don't see any tiny bones of elves, maybe these are coming in between dimensions and jacking people up, because that's kind of what their lore is saying, that they come in and out of different realms or something. Perhaps that's it. Other people say that it's, lore about pygmies who did get around. We know
Hmm.
that the Negritos and small statured people were on that land. So we don't really know what they were seeing, but they insist that these individuals make deals with them and, you know, don't keep up on their end of the bargain. They don't get that pot of gold normally. They promise it, but they don't really give it to you. You usually get jacked up. So they're putting me in the mind of the jinns, where they
Oh,
make promises and basically jack you up.
that's so fascinating, Wani. Our brother, Bobby Hemmett, years ago said some shit about the Batois. He spent time with the Batois. Y'all know him as the Pygmies, which is that's an ugly word. It's pejorative. But Bobby Hemmett was saying he was with the Batois, and one of them turned into something, or like just metamorphosed. Like, what do you call it? Like he
Shapeshifted.
shape shifted, and then Bobby was like, I'm paraphrasing him, but Bobby was like, damn, like why didn't y'all tell me you could do that? And that's why I looked at him and said, nobody asked. You know, the
So they would say
nobody asked
something
me.
like that. They would say something like that. Nobody does ask them things, and
Yeah,
they
they
know
just
a lot.
assume the European assumes that they're just some little primitive people when they can have technology out the wazoo, shape shifting and all that type of shit. They could be hyper advanced. Maybe they know something that we want. Maybe they know that walking around with not a lot of clothes on is good for you.
I'm
Maybe it.
wondering. I'm wondering if they have a relationship with the forest that we don't know about because I spent a significant amount of time with them and they were having a great time and I was complaining the whole time about
Wow.
bugs and all kinds of stuff, huts. I had hut issues. It didn't have a door and things could
Wow.
come in, but things weren't coming in and bothering them. Okay, why? Do they have a relationship with these bugs and animals and other things that they stay away from them? However, they were discussing something they were doing to keep a large spider out. But for the most part, they have been pretty much a part of the environment. And I'm not. Why is that? What is it about them that the environment understands? And what is their relationship? They have been there for hundreds of thousands of years, and I was just there for a while. But there is something about them that is magical. I didn't see them shape shifting, but there's something about them that is magical that it makes it like they're part of nature, and nature doesn't attack them and get on them the way it does outsiders.
I,
Right. Go ahead. Go ahead, Nas.
I'm sorry about that. I was just going to say it's probably because they more tapped into the spirit. When you are more of a spiritual person, you're not so caught up with the material world, material possessions. And as you know, a lot of times that's described as something evil to be too of the world and material. So they don't desire trying to advance and be powerful because they're fulfilled spiritually. And that's kind of what we speak talking about with white people. They're out of tune with spirituality. They go against nature. So that's why they desire all this power and to dominate and to name everybody and all these type of things and cast these spells on people. And it's kind of like with the ancient Egyptians. Correct me if I'm wrong. At a certain point, they were more so concerned with getting back to their old ways and going back to the past and figuring out what their ancestors were doing. They weren't trying to dominate Europe or anybody else because they was more so trying to tap back into their spiritual ways and figure out how their ancestors built those pyramids.
Yeah. Um. The back to Edgar Casey when he talked about Atlantis and how Atlantis fell. This shit blew my mind today, man. Like, I saw it today. I'd never seen this interview before, but Edgar Casey said that the Atlanteans were introduced to an outsider called the Sons of Belial, and they corrupted them. They corrupted their mind, and the Atlanteans start looking for power. Like they wanted more and more and more power, and they started to use power to divide and to kind of conquer stuff. But you made me think about that because that quest, according to Edgar Casey, vis-a-vis Sigmund Freud, that quest for power took them away from the one spirit, the one God, what we refer to as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or God, and fractured them. They became alienated, which is what Dr. Francis Cress Welsing argues that they're alienated. They alienate themselves to get power when the true purpose of being here, according to Edgar Casey, is to be connected with the one, the God one, the all, the collective unconscious, just being one with nature, with God. But no, they're going to take the power and try to emulate God. And that's the disease that we see in the world today is people who want to control other people when the purpose of this, according to Casey, is to come together and be in unison. Well, what's the possibility that certain groups can't be in unison, according to Dr. Sharshy McIntyre, because they're and Dr. Welsing because they're out of sync naturally with the rhythm, the natural rhythm of things. It's dangerous if you think about it. What's the solution? The great one. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes.
Hey.
Hey,
Hi, what's happening, family?
what's up, brother? I can I barely
I
hear
know
you.
I heard people
What you
giggling.
drinking? What you drinking?
Hey, see, this is where we start.
Uh-oh. What's on your mind?
But on the other hand, I'm glad that you guys are having conversations about
Okay.
this whole. Damn it! See, is my shit. I will drop down and bring it back up. Just give me a minute.
Okay.
You
All right.
David, where are you going?
You wanting? I
Get
already
back
know
over
your
here.
voice. I already know your voice, wanting.
I know you know. This is private.
This is Hennessy is what this is.
Don't you say anything. This dude. That's so funny. You don't know how funny that is.
Hey, last time I sounded like that, I was leaving a party, getting in the car. No shit. Last time I sounded like that, it was the early 2000s. I went to a party. Listen to this shit. I went to a party with this girl, and I ordered a shot of double shot of Hennessy. You know that little thing at the bar where they hit the button and the liquor come out.
No.
It's
No,
a that
nigga, you went to a restaurant that we didn't know of. For
so
real?
so so my dude hit the button to pour me some a shot of Hennessy, and the fucking button broke. Snap, and it just started pouring, and it wouldn't stop pouring. So dude got a big old cup and was like trying. He's like, man, I'm gonna say this, man. So the manager come up and was like, man, you can't sell that shit, man. That's a health code violation. And I said, well, shit, I give you $20 and I'll just take a whole cup of Hennessy. How dumb was I? So I took a whole cup of Hennessy and I finished that shit and rode home with this girl, and I had an awful night. Oh my god! But that's the last time I heard that type of sound.
When did it start? After you
Oh
drank it or?
yeah,
I
well,
everyone.
I got in her car and got sick. Let's just leave it there.
Oh, that's not fun.
You were drinking and driving?
Yeah, he was
I
drinking and
said
Yeah, because you have to.
got
he
in the
was
car
drunk.
with. You're not listening. I said got in the car with a girl. She was driving.
Okay,
I
Okay.
okay. I
He
really
didn't
don't
talk to
think
you.
that you.
all right. I'm gonna let you
Everybody
sober.
was drunk. Everybody was drunk in the vehicle,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
including the car.
I'm gonna let you sober up a little bit, my friend. This,
Wait a minute.
I'm gonna let him sober up
But
because I'm.
I wanted to agree with Nas that they are spiritual and they're part of nature. And I think that that's why they have a completely different perspective. The Batwa and the Khoisan, they're not going to build emerald cities over there, and they're not backward. They're just different. They're into different things. They're um, kind of living in two dimensions from what I can make out.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're living in two dimensions from what I can make out. And they really sometimes seem very like they can't defend themselves from the other Africans and the colonists. And they just seem to just want to do their own thing and be alone and just, but the European colonists and the other Africans, don't like their way of life. They don't like the fact that they cross over borders. And they don't like the fact that they're in touch with nature and that they do have that relationship with nature. Their goal is to rip everybody apart and tear them away from nature. Get off the Omo Valley River. Get off of the Get out of the Congo jungle. They don't want people to live like that. And this fight's been going on ever since humans were moving and decided, hey, we want to have farms and domesticate animals. Those uh, farmers and people that wanted to domesticate animals were very hateful and violent toward hunter gatherers who just didn't want to do that. And they've
Wow.
never stopped doing it. And they have done it everywhere that those two groups met.
That's interesting. That's not the first time I heard it. I've heard it that there's a lot of vitriol towards the Khoisan as well. Um, yeah. Well, I'm not gonna tell that. But there's a if you go to the National Archives and type in um, George Snyder, you'll see a letter from a German named George Snyder, and basically, or Frederick Snyder, I'm sorry. Um, he was trying to warn George Washington. George Washington was president. America was brand new, and he's warning America because a secret society, came to him to recruit him and gave him a pamphlet and a book and whatnot, and God knows what else. And he said, "I'm first thing I'm gonna do is warn the president." Snyder was a rich German, and he tried to warn George Washington about this secret society. I'm not going to mention that's going to take over the world, and basically he showed him the pamphlet, and the pamphlet said that Wani, it said that our objective is to destroy the idea of an Almighty God and to destroy, destroy nature and make man. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but to make man an animal. So nature's on
It's
the
already
list,
an animal.
but take away his spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder does that have
It's
something to
a
do with the
big.
suns? But that sounds like Satanism, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Make you animalistic. They don't want you to have a spiritual connection. Is it? Are they threatened by the spiritual connection? I don't know.
Yes.
I wonder is that what the sons of Belial did to the Atlanteans is take away their connection to the Creator. It's a lot to think about. All right, is there power in naming? Yes. You can empower somebody by giving them a name, right? Connecting them with their land based identity, right? Um, our brother Tariq Nasheed did that by identifying. Well, first, our brother Claude Anderson did it by referring to us as native blacks. Native blacks identified that we have a right to the land. This is our land. Go ahead, Nas.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, I ain't want to cut you off, but
You
yeah.
didn't.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say I wanted to answer the prompt actually because I didn't speak to that.
Go ahead.
So yeah, there is power in naming. That's kind of what spirituality is. When you channel energy, when a lot of people come together and set forth an intention with the same goal in mind, that's energetic. So when they name people and they have put a certain meaning and concept behind it, that's like manifesting a certain reality for those people. That's them trying to control their destiny and channel their energy towards directing that person's path. So 100%, there's power in naming people.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Go ahead. Fuck our white.
Hey, Professor Wani. Happy belated birthday, Wani.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, no problem, no problem. I really appreciate you guys having this room. I wanted to address the question: did Europeans name everybody Indians? So I think the name of Indians, when it kind of refers to Americans, was kind of something exclusive. I know that we're told that Christopher Columbus, when he kind of like started looking for when he first kind of set out to go towards America, he wasn't really looking for America. He was looking for India, right? But funny enough, during the time that Christopher Columbus was kind of sailing around, they referred to India as Hindustan and not India. So India was never really, it wasn't really, kind of subject to the place that we now think of as India. And I also wanted to mention that we have a lot of maps, ancient maps that refer to America as India Major or India Minor. It's one of those two. I believe it's India Major, but I think he might have been going off the ancient theory because it is a theory that kind of predates the out of Africa theory, and it's called the out of Lemuria theory. And the out of Lemuria theory, proposed that that life kind of originated in southeastern Asia, around the tip of India, in a place called Lemuria, and that people spread up through India and around like Africa, and entered through Africa through the northern part of Africa. And I know I've brought this up before, but it kind of coincides with the Bantu migration. And I don't know if you know this, but the Bantu people are factually proven to not have reached Namibia, which is a part of southern Africa, until the 16th or 17th century. So that was around the 1600s or 1700s. So I believe there's a little deeper connection on why they refer to the people of America as Indians, and I'll leave it off there.
That's absolutely true. I just looked it up. Thank you for that tidbit. Again, I learn a lot of things on this app.
Right.
Helps me piece this mystery together. So it said for a period of history, the term India was used on maps to refer to parts of the Americas. So that's why they called it the West Indies, even though I don't know why they're calling it that. And they called people West Indians. They called people in North America Indians. They called other people in South America Black Indians and other people Black Indians. And later they called people in Hindustan Indian. I don't know why. Everybody seemed to be Indian. Uh, hey, Actify.
What's up, Actify?
Hey, family. Again, also, happy belated birthday, Wani. Um, this is going to be kind of weird talking about naming things. I don't know. It only ran like 2 seasons, but some people, when there was a show that taught me about the power of names. It was a show called Gargoyles. Remember the cartoon Gargoyles with Keith David as the voice of the main gargoyle?
Oh, it
For
was
those that,
bomb back in the
yeah,
day. Oh yeah.
that was a great show. And there was an episode, and a couple of the minor gargoyles were talking to each other. The fat one and the little skinny one, I forget their names. It was a long time ago. They were discussing about how white people, how the I forget what they called the white folks. They called them. They said, why did he insist on naming things? I think they were talking about the East River. It was based in Manhattan, and they had a short dialogue about naming things, and that this was a long time ago, obviously, and it triggered me to thinking, man, if you name a thing, you get to decide the nature of a thing, you get to disconnect
Hello.
it, you get to connect it, you get to decide what it is and where it sits in whatever social or economic structure that you decide. That's a lot of fucking power. There's a
Outrageous amount of
lot of
power.
fucking power. And it's wild that show is what taught me that as a young man. I just wanted to share that.
Love it. Naming is everything. It's everything. You know, you come through. Let's look at New York. New York was first colonized by the. Do y'all know that New York was colonized by the Dutch? It was colonized by the Dutch, and the fucking English just showed up with bigger guns, bigger ships, and told them to leave. It really went down like that. They're like, "Fuck off, this is ours," and they renamed it New York after York in England. So that think of all that power to rename it New. This is the New York. You know, um, how would things be different in New York if New York was new? If the English never showed up, or the Dutch had bigger guns, and they called it New Amsterdam, would it be a different culture? I think so. You know, it's all about power and naming, and it's a lot of, like I said again, in the Holy Bible. Adam was given the ability to name animals, and by naming, he created according to that tradition, he created the reality of these animals. Naming creates reality. which is why we were named African Americans, because the reality that was prescribed for us is that of is that of a foreigner, when it was the opposite of the truth. We've never been foreigners.
And like
That's
everything, we rejected it and created our own name, put our own vibration on it, and took all of their slurs and used them back upon themselves. So now they want to be called my nigga.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. The Black American has been the masters of metaphysical jujitsu. You see, in jujitsu, you don't use a lot of energy. The objective is to use your enemy's energy against them. So if somebody's throwing a punch with me, I wait to a critical time, grab the punch, and sling it in the direction of the punch, thereby making the puncher lose his balance and go following his fist into the ground. That's kind of what we've done with words, flipping nigga around, and then making it to where other groups can't say it. They can't stand that word. They can't say it, and then we say it without the hurt. That's brilliant of us. We're doing it again with naming ourselves. We're declaring the power. We're taking power over our own destiny. Well, we are no longer African Americans because the majority of us have no land-based identity in Africa. I went to Africa, hoping to find my long lost cousins, and I really didn't feel a spiritual connection over there. It was anticlimactic and kind of sad. I was like, oh man, if there's some relation, we're related to them on some level, but it's not what they make it seem. I think we've been here the whole time. We are foundational Black Americans, and that is absolute power, taking power over our destiny, taking power over our name, and that's what it's all about. So with the Indian issue, somebody brought up Christopher Columbus. I wrote a textbook that actually cost me a job at a college that I love so dear, and I found Christopher Columbus's diary, and in Christopher Columbus's diary, he said, "quote When he landed in the Bahamas, Christopher Columbus never made it to America." So look at that. Look at the power of those words and naming. Christopher Columbus. Um, there's a Columbus Day celebrating Christopher Columbus founding America when he never came here. Just
They just
cap.
make things up. The man wasn't even from Italy, but I can go through all that too, but just let me know.
Where was he from?
He was trained in the Portuguese style of sailing. He spoke Hebrew.
Uh-oh.
They said he was from Genoa, but he wasn't trained in the sailing style from Genoa.
Oh boy.
There was no Italy yet.
Now, what you said earlier is exactly what John Henry Clark said. Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust. Yeah, he said exactly what you said. He argued that Christopher Columbus was a member of another group who were looking for a homeland. That's just what Dr. Clark said. I don't know if that's true or not.
I can read all the facts and people can decide for themselves.
Come on with it, Wani, because I want to know this.
I gotta look it up.
Well, while she looks it up, listen to Christopher Columbus's diary. They dot dot dot. He really put an ellipsis right there. Why do you put an ellipsis behind they? Does that like out of spite? They dot 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 brought us parrots and balls of cotton and spears and many other things which they exchanged for glass beads and hawk bells. They willingly trained everything they owned. Dot dot dot. Was he calling them stupid? They were well built with good bodies and handsome features. Uh-oh. Christopher Columbus said that they were well built with good bodies and handsome features. What does that mean?
I don't know, but these Europeans also said that about certain African men, and they said something relating the men to a white man, and I couldn't understand it because a Congolese man doesn't look like a white man in any stretch of the imagination, but they said something about handsomer than a white man or something. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? I don't know because words change. So they may have been speaking about some aspect that I don't know. I'm still trying to work that out.
Yeah, it's so awkward. But he says, they do not bear arms and do not know them. For I showed them a sword. They took it by the edge and cut themselves out of ignorance. They have no iron. Their spears are made of cane, dot, dot, dot. They would make fine servants, dot, dot, dot. With 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want. Look at that thought process. What type of person is this? Why is there Columbus
Yeah,
Day?
the thought process is very foul. And also, remember, people tell the truth before, just like the Greeks were saying, hey, we went over to Egypt and got all this information. People told the truth. So they think black men are handsome and they think Indian men are handsome. But now they say we're not.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna go with I see you actifying fuck all. We're gonna go with a new speaker and come right back to y'all. Let's see what Jamba talking about. Jamba, what's on your mind, man? Or Jamba?
Hey, all you niggas is liars. All you niggas is bitches. Bunch of fucking fake ass motherfuckers talking
Oh,
about
hi.
I don't even hear what
Hey,
he talk.
dude, what's
I
up?
don't
he's
even
not
hear
from
what he
America.
talking about.
All of you guys was sold
Is
as
he
slaves.
It
mad?
sounds
Hey,
like he
I
just
don't.
learned English.
All
Yeah,
of
I
you
don't
niggas are
really.
sold. That's why we sell your grand.
I'm trying
Oh,
to
my
hear what you talking
That's
about.
why
goodness.
we sell your grandpa to the
And you came to our
bunch of
space, man.
nigga. I ain't coming in your space. This is everybody's space. A bunch of bitches. I want to sit on Twitter and talk shit. I can't go in your neighborhood and do change life for your people.
Motherfucker. Shut up.
Look
All
here,
right, bye,
nigga.
bye, Jamba. Bye,
What
bye,
was
Jamba.
that? He came in like a tornado.
Yeah, screaming like a lady.
Now, um, should I do the Columbus stuff? I'll just
Yeah, go
wait
ahead.
for I'll
Yeah,
wait
go
for
ahead.
Actify to go. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Activa.
Yeah, I mean, always coming to these rooms kind of trigger my thought process when I was a younger man. You know, I heard about Columbus saying that he saw dark skinned people here in the Americas, all right? But if you let that sit unexamined and you think of what we were told about what Europe was at the time, you would think that they don't know they don't know anything about you would think that they don't that Europeans didn't know anything about black people. And then you start going into pictures of, of famous black people from antiquity. They knew who black people were. They knew who Africans were. They understood what they were seeing when they got to this side of the world. It wasn't just it wasn't just that thought he was in India. No, he had an understanding of what these people look like and different phenotypes. And a lot of the world understood phenotypes at that time. At that time, and I think some of the pieces, man, I don't, I'm not the, I don't think, I don't believe that we were all always here, but there's a lot of things that I don't understand that I'm learning. I still I still give pretendians a hard time. It's just what I do. It's how I get down. But there is something to a dark skinned people being here prior to Columbus, whether that was from trade, whether it was from uh, Mansa
The
Musa's brother, who
Austronesians,
Austronesians,
some
or
sailing
Man,
Africans.
yeah, so yeah, Mansa Musa's people sailing here from his brother sailing here from the from the continent, or I refuse to go with the Pangea thing. I refuse. I haven't gone that far yet.
Why
But
not?
Why
no, no, no,
not?
no, no, no,
That's so
no.
interesting. Academics, in the
Mm.
academic world, they avoid Pangea too. That's
Yeah,
very
and
interesting.
Why?
I think to my mind the timing is off. Of course, obviously I could be wrong.
Okay. So
Learning
you
is a
think the
journey.
timing's off? Got it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
The to
just
my
confused on it at this point because of
hmm
timing issues as well.
It's hard as hell to find scholarship on it.
Yeah, and there may be a reason for that. You know, and you find these things out, and you hear about Herodotus, the things that he wrote. And matter of fact, I went on those of you who don't know the what's the name of that damn website that with all those old books. Uh, Gutenberg, and
Hmm.
you start reading this stuff, and Arthur Conan Doyle talking about the Congo. We were familiar with Europeans, were familiar with Africans, they were familiar with Indians, they were familiar with Asians. This is We knew each other as peoples. So coming here to a land that he had never been before, speaking of Columbus now, coming here, speaking of Columbus and the land he's never been before, he knew what he was looking at. It wasn't a mystery to him. And these kind of things, you know, I don't know, I'm kind of babbling now, but it's just stuff that kind of triggered thought when I was a younger man, and it kind of got buried. Life goes on, but now here we are. All right, that's it. That's all I got.
You're
Well,
right. The Greco-Roman Empire had people from different backgrounds, and these trade routes also had people from different backgrounds. So it's really ridiculous when people say they've never seen this, that, or the other thing before. They definitely saw it, and then the Silk Road and all of the trade that these people had between each other. So you ready for me to talk about Columbus?
well, before you do, in the jumbotron, I put a page of my book in the jumbotron where I have a Columbus quote. I actually took that picture. Columbus says, "Following the light of the sun, we left the old world for the execution of the voyage to the Indies," like Wani said. Columbus bragged on this, on being dumb. He said, "I did not make use of map. I did not make use of intelligence, mathematics, or maps." He up here bragging on being dumb. And then he says, "No one should fear to undertake any task in the name of our Savior, if it is just and the intention is purely for his holy service." I beg the question, who is he talking about? He went through there killing mothers and children, snatching babies off the breasts and throwing them on rocks and having competitions to see who could bash their head open on the rocks. You don't believe me? Read Bartholomew de las Casas um, book, The Destruction of what's De las Casas' book called? It's his book. I forgot the name. I'll look it up. But De Las Casas said he documented everything Columbus did. So who is he talking about? Who is his
Hmm.
savior?
I don't know what kind of mentalities these people had, especially him being Jewish, and hunted down and having to live hiding to be that violent toward another group. I don't understand it. But here's the evidence I've compiled about Columbus. So he sent 13 letters to his sons, and in those letters, he used Hebrew phrases, which translates to "with God's help," and some other phrases. So that's strike number one. In the ship's log, he referenced the Hebrew Bible and the Jewish calendar. Strike two. He corresponded in Hebrew, Portuguese, and Ladino, which is like Yiddish, a Jewish dialect of Spanish, with Hebrew, Castilian, and uh, other linguistics, and not Italian. There's a lot of strikes on him. Let me move down the page. Um, so his supporters were Jewish statesmen, Abraham Zacato, Jewish, Vincenio and Louis D. Santagel and Gabriel Sanchez. So these guys are Jewish, but you can see they have Spanish type names. So that those were his supporters. And he also, when he died, his last will adhered to the Jewish philosophy of philanthropy. And his son said, "The only thing we know about our father is that he's Jewish." And his daughter was apparently buried at a synagogue. There's a lot of Jewish things going on. He also saw something in the sky when he was sailing, and then when he got back to Spain, he was questioned on it, and he said it looked like a menorah. And he almost got in a lot of trouble because they said, "What do you know about menorahs? Why are you saying that this thing in the sky was a menorah?" Now, Simon Wiesenthal in the book Sails of Hope said that Columbus sailed to find a safe haven for Jewish people, and that was written in a book by a Jewish man. So there's a lot of information about him being Jewish.
Dr. John Henry Clark posited that in his book, which is very fascinating. And I don't want to sound ignorant and get paraphrase this book. I'll try to find it when the next person starts speaking. But Dr. Clark looked at he had the dates lined up, and the dates just matched when that group of people were being exiled from Spain. I think it was 14. The exile was 1492.
Mm-hmm.
So that's correct. Wow. Actify, what's on your mind? Go ahead, Actify.
I, I, I'm sorry. I'm kind of go off base. That dude that came up here yelling at us, telling us we're African. It triggered in my mind. I wrote an article a while back, one of the many articles I wrote during the beginning of ADOS, and it was, and I think I coined the term um, social, what was it, social social stratification. Uh, word. Anyway, what our our moving our position in the social strata caused a lot of unrest with everyone else in the social strata. And in particular, the folks that we now call tethers. This is pre tether. The folks are called tether. And it seems like this reaction was weird to me. Maybe I was just naive. I know white folks don't want to pay reparations, but the reaction to us, whether we called ourselves ADOS at the time, whether we called ourselves FBA, whether we called ourselves freedmen, anything other than this full 100% connection to being a lost tribe of Africa, anything other than that caused everybody to flip. And it was just, and I'm an observer of people, an observer of the political landscape and social landscape. And I still can't put it together fully. And I still don't get it. Even if we say that okay, we're all here prior and there was very little slave trade from Africa, even that should not trigger this level of instability in people. You see how that dude came on the stage? This was emotional. This was something deeper, and I noticed this on Clubhouse too, where early on in the days where people were just crumbling under the idea that they weren't us, crumbling under the idea that we were no longer going to connect, that we were no longer going, that our identity was no longer dependent on being connected to them. It was just weird and unexpected. And this instability is, I don't know. This is just group therapy
You
at this
gotta
point, I guess.
understand,
That's
bro.
all I
We
got.
we invented edge ups, boy. And they ain't started doing that till we started doing that. You hear me? They can't lose us. No matter how much they try to talk down on us or whatever, we is a crown jewel of our people. Whatever people that may be, whatever you want to call it, we are the crown jewel of that, always have been. Even when we were in Africa, we were always separate. But that's some other like anthropology or whatever you want to call it type stuff. But I
But
just
why do
wanted
they
to.
like edge ups when they don't have any hairlines?
But they do that. They'll admit it that they used to like. They really used to look up to us. I don't know what all this
What?
current vitriol on the social media and all that stuff. That's just reactionary. But in
So
reality,
And that's part of my point, because I've lived on the continent for nearly a decade, and this
well,
vitriol, and I did. Oh,
But
go
you
well,
ahead. I'm
have
yeah.
to
sorry.
Well,
Go
remember.
ahead. Go ahead.
Dr. Claude Anderson. No, I just want to quickly answer Actify Press. I know exactly what the reasoning is, and Dr. Claude Anderson let us know it. He let us know in Black Labor, White Wealth, page 102, on an essay called "Blacks and Ethnic Immigrants Compete for Resources." So check this out. Hell, I don't even know where to begin. Let's see. He says first. He says, as a matter of fact, ethnic and racial immigrants like that dude that came up on stage that didn't couldn't control himself. You're right, Actify. He was so emotionally triggered. um, ha- Ethnic and racial immigrants historically have been a wedge between whites and blacks, giving the whites an alternative to interacting with blacks. Each time in history, either before or after a war, when the American economy was expanding and could have offered material economic benefits to blacks, a new influx of immigrants or refugees arrived to fill the void and further exile blacks from the fruitful participation in the national life, according to historian Dan Lacey. So they're dependent on us because the deal, the unspoken contract with the dominant societies, I'll come over here and get what the black Americans are supposed to get and give you an excuse to show that you're a philanthropist. Last but not least, we're going to go to page 103, same book. And they say, Dr. Anderson says, today there is little cooperation, political or otherwise, between blacks and minority groups. For the most part, ethnic minorities do not support black causes because they have been getting a free, listen to what Dr. Claude Anderson said, they've been getting a free ride at black people's expense on civil rights and minority programs. I've seen this shit play out in real time in front of my face as a professor. Dr. Anderson further
Yeah.
said, as members of loosely formed political coalitions, they are mostly quiet while blacks agitate, but they are quick to stake their claim on affirmative action benefits won by blacks. We're leaving him behind, and he's like, no, 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 come back. I need to ride you to get where I need to go. That's where the anger's coming from. Go ahead, Wani.
That flag he had was the Gambia. I didn't recognize it right away. And so I don't know why he was so hostile. He was calling us slaves, and we weren't even talking about Africans this time. So did you pick up what he was saying?
This time.
Yeah, I did.
It's like, we're not related to these people. We have ancestral lines that go back to different places, 5 to 6 continents, and they don't own us. We decide who we associate with. You've got Pakistani people living right next to Indian people. They have ancestral ties and they're living right next to each other and they hate each other's guts. They have nuclear weapons pointed toward each other and threaten each other all the time. You have tons of tons of, well, yeah, African too. You have tons of groups of people that are genetically related and living next to each other with similar backgrounds that hate each other's guts and have committed genocides upon each other. They are enemies over thousands of years. And yet, for some reason, we are being force teamed with Africans. And these people have historically done damage to us, to our ancestral lines that do go to Africa. They have attacked those people in the most horrible way, in the same way that the European has, and yet we're supposed to be best buddies with them? No, that's our decision. They don't get to run up in here and tell us who we're friends with and start screaming because we won't say we're full African, which we're not. We're just not the same race as them. We're not the same background as them. We're not the same continent as them. We're not. We're collectively we're different. Genetically we're different, and if you pull a typical Black American's DNA profile, even if they have zero European DNA showing, it's still going to say this is a combination found in North America. You're not going to see all these different Africans mixed up together over in Africa. That isn't the way it works. They mostly have one group. They marry within their own tribes. So they don't have a lot of diversity. They just don't. And we don't have anything to do with them unless we want to. They don't get to tell us who we deal with.
Right. And further, if you look at the history, scholars, it erased the mystery. According to Dr. Snyder, in their masterpiece, Slavery in America, it says, quote, slaves are brought by black traders at fairs, which are held for that purpose at a distance of upwards of 200 miles from the sea and coast. It says free Africans as a group by no means objected. She's talking about to the slave trade. Enslavement did not offend their moral sense. As far as the record shows, Though nobody wanted to be enslaved, only a few Africans protested against the slave trade. So Africans were complicit in that slave trade. So he gonna come in here to try to wag his finger at us when his ancestors probably sold slaves. Lastly, Dr. Snyder says the trade not only commercialized the economy, but changed everyday life of Africans. It also corrupted them. So he needs to get his spirit right for he coming here trying to talk to us. But notice how
Well,
they come finding us down. They come hunting us down. We're not
right.
looking for them.
We're not going into a Gambian room. Speaking of their moral sensibilities, no, slavery does not offend them, and they continue to do it to this day. And when they're
Preach.
not doing that, speaking of the Gambia, that's the place where women were lined up to sell their toddlers' anuses to local tourists. And then they formed a long line of toddlers to feed to this pervert. And do you know what? One of the times when they were doing that, a Black American woman was there on vacation, and she said, well, get out of the line." And they said, "This is our culture. Don't get involved." And they kicked her out of the country, told her to get out.
Wow.
And then they denied that they do that. And you had all of these global children's rights organizations over there doing articles about the fact that they absolutely do. These people are not, just want to say, these people are not starving. All of those women were twice my size. They're big, hefty, big back women lined up with toddlers, and there's, fruit hanging off the trees, and they could go shimmy up a tree to get a monkey to eat. There's absolutely no reason for them to be selling their children like that. Was that offensive?
No, but it made me think of bushmeat. Actify press. What's
Yeah,
on your mind?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I understand all of that, but I understand that a lot of I'm not saying that I knew it then, but I definitely know it now that all these people depend on us to be the workhorse for democracy. We're the workhorse for democracy for everybody except white men, right? And that that status, even with that status, maybe I was naive. I did not expect the level of emotion from everybody, the level of vitriol from everybody. I mean, it's good that it happened that way because it's kind of woke me up from my lefty leanings, and we all people want the same things, and we need to work together, yada yada yada. I'm on some, well, those that know me, I'm on some fuck everybody shit now. But this level of, it's kind of leveling off. It's not as bad as it used to be, but the beginning of this, the vitriol we got back in like in the late 20 teens, it was crazy. I mean, a lot of it is because folks are fighting back, and nobody fights back like we fight back, especially verbally. Because we, as you said, was saying earlier, Professor, we mastered this language. This language bends to our
Yep.
will, and and it is what it is. You don't have to like it, but it is this language. I mean, all you gotta do is read Baldwin for 5 minutes, and you're like, God
Yep. Yep.
damn. And but I just this I'm still flabbergasted by the level of emotional angst. I guess that's a good word that we're receiving from these people.
It's how
My gasters are
is
flabbergasted.
how dare you leave me? And me and Wani were talking about this the other day. I'm glad you brought that up, Actify. I really think a lot of that vitriol comes from the fact that their ancestors sold some of us into slavery, and now they're looking at karmic resonance right in the face as somebody that they sold into slavery is outdoing them. They can't handle it. And then we
Now,
have go ahead.
I was just going to say, now remember, um, besides the fact that this got ratcheted up when we started speaking about delineation, yes, it did. But don't forget, They have problems with everywhere. That's why their passports are rejected. No one wants to hire them. They literally have ads that say no Nigerians need apply. A lot of these West African countries, they don't want them in there. Other African nations don't want them in their countries, especially South Africa. So remember, these are not loving, cuddly people to begin with. They have problems wherever they go. They spread crime and have problems socially wherever they go. And so we're just being, that's probably why they're very, very hostile toward us, because they're already hostile to begin with. And when you speak about hostilities, the genocides that they continue to do against one another shows you the level of hostility that they're willing to go to. And no matter what they do, they'll just say, "Oh, the European tricked us into doing it." So they don't have to suffer the consequences. And that's why we've been tricked into forgiving them for crimes against humanity, because they're not even considered regular people. They're like people that are less than, not control of their, have no control of their brains. And the European can just come in there and say a few things and they're ready to butcher up their own people and anyone else. They're not even considered real people by their own standard. They say every time they do something, the European made them do it. I asked the question, why are 40,000 children in cobalt mines? The European, where is he? Where is this guy? There's no European there. Well, he's luring us with, dollar signs from cobalt. Well, why don't you make better deals? Why don't you say, hey, we'll get the cobalt out, but you're going to have to pay for actual men to mine it with equipment? What is the problem? You can't just steal people. They don't care about, they don't believe that people have autonomy. They don't believe that people have liberty. They just snatch you out of your life, just like the Ottoman Empire snatched up all the harem girls, just like the people in the trans-Saharan slave trade were snatched up, and just like people on the transatlantic slave trade were just snatching people like they've always done, and they've never stopped.
Yeah, yeah, Wani. According to Dr. Snyder, it's for the husband and wife. They said that allegedly African kings sold their wives, with whom they were angry. African parents sold children for whom they could not feed, and desperate Africans sold themselves. Can you imagine somebody selling themselves on the slave trade? Barbeau told of a son who defeated his royal father's efforts to sell him by first selling his father first, only to be met on his return home by a fellow tribesman who took his profits and sold them. They corrupted their culture, you know, and they have no moral authority to come here and tell us shit. I say I'm of no relation. Go ahead, the black.
What's going on, Professor Warner? Everybody else in the space. This this
What's up,
title
brother?
this title kind of reminds me of this movie. It was a kind of like a remake of like Gulliver's Travels, or one of those books, the Pre Americas. But in the movie, I post it when I find it. In the movie, the white dude was breaking down that he breaking down the Bible, because I guess uh they were stuck. He he had ended up on an island, stranded, and he was going crazy, and he seen some natives, and the natives was burying one of their dead, and he he ended up killing the natives, because you know what I'm saying, they was, I guess they was eating the person that they was eating, part of the body of the person that they were burying. But one of them had pretended like he was a prisoner, so the white dude wouldn't shoot him either. And then the white man, in his brain, he saved the black man's life, the native life, and now all of a sudden the native is indebted to him. So he get the black dude to build him like a little, kind of like a little fort. Him and the black dude build it together, and he's kind of trying to teach him English, whatever rendition of English that at the time, and trying to be like his master slash teacher. It's crazy because like when the black dude kind of realized the what he was really doing, and he demanded that he get paid. So now they they have a relationship of you paying me for your services, and I buy my freedom.
Wow.
So that I guess a boat had came, and they was gonna enslave the black man and kill the white boy, because the white boy done taught him English and all type of other skills. So they were like, hey, the black dude is valuable. We could just kill the white man and take him with us, and sell him to the Americas. So when one said earlier about the British Isles, and they really considered islands, when you really just, and we take everything back to how it was in the construct of during the time period. The West Indies and some parts of America was considered the British Isles. So sometimes when I read history, I look at it as like, okay, if they said they going to the British Isles, and they not really being specific on what part of the British colonies they going to, sometimes they could be saying they're actually going to the mainland instead of going to the islands, because all they ran all of it at one time. All of it was part, including the 13 colonies. So it reminds me of when they got the natives from the island to fight the natives on the mainland, which what we call Jamaicans, and they brought them to fight the Maroons, the so called Seminoles or Runaways. So it's funny how sometimes they kind of conflate people by just naming them all Indians in one point, but when it's in their best benefit, they'll easily reclassify somebody else something else, even though a couple of weeks ago they was calling them a native.
Wow. Yeah, all about reclassification is warfare, and it's done. I love it, the black, because that fits right into the title. It's done with naming, and it is absolute power when done correctly. All right, Grand, did you have a chance to speak? I saw you come up, but I don't recall you speaking.
What's going on, y'all? Good evening.
Good evening, brother. What's going on? What's on your mind, man?
Nothing much, man. It's my first time in this group, and I
Okay.
just wanted to say I like what y'all doing in there, man. It's a conversation that definitely needs to be discussed more, and I do believe that they did at one time, again to the topic of the group, that they did at one time try to name everybody Indians, and the power in naming, like y'all said. Well, my thing on it is this, right? Before, we had names, we had titles, and the titles were like how you would move, how what your character was. So when they came to give people new names or new titles, it was to kind of put them, under like their kind of scrutiny or their kind of construct, because when you label somebody, a savage or somebody who needs to be civilized, then that's like the excuse you give your peoples to justify why you warring or invading the peoples. So that was just my little thing on it. I'm new to the
Yeah,
group,
man.
but just want to see
Love
y'all
it.
doing some great stuff here, man.
The brother Grand used the magic word. The word is justify, and he's exactly right. They use it to justify the brutality that they often exert. Give them a reason. That's what they need. Very good.
But my
Um,
question, I want to say
Go ahead.
just one more thing too. As
Go
far
ahead, brother.
as far as that gentleman that came in, the African dude, um, my sister is married to an African dude, and I talk with him, and from what I hear from him and his family, there's no real, history of us having no real connection like that. The connection really came after they came in contact with another set of peoples, so from real Africans, that they don't really share that type of view like what he has, and they know. It's not no real connection like that. The connection came after they became Christian or got converted to Christianity or whatever. I want to get too much into religion, but you know, the history or the scholarship on that isn't really out there for them to say that, even that they sold people or whatever. There's no tales of that, no stories of that. They couldn't, their grandparents never told him that. His grandparents never told him that, you know?
But they did. Where is he from?
Um, fucking JG is from wherever the Yoruba's from. He's Yoruba. I'm not.
Nigerian. They
Yeah,
sold
Nigerian.
slaves
Nigeria.
But
big
yeah.
time. They're big time slave sellers.
Oh
The
yeah.
scholarship is out there. There's not a problem.
Yep. Benin, Nigeria. That was one of the apexes of the slave trade. Wani's right.
Okay, I gotta look more into that, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate your submission, bro.
Appreciate
Tractor,
y'all.
what's on your mind, Tractor?
Peace to the space, man. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
My voice a little messed up. I'm still recovering from this pneumonia, but just a small thing to a giant. I didn't
Take it
really
easy.
appreciate it. I'm
I I
taking
had pneu I had pneumonia once, man.
yeah,
That shit scared me half to death.
real talk. This is the second time I had it too. I had it last year, so that's why I knew what I had as soon as I got it. I kind of figured, you know what I mean. And last time I had it for like going on 3 weeks before I finally, somebody told me go to the hospital, and they was like, "Man, if you'd have waited a little bit longer, you probably wouldn't have made it." I'm like, "For real? I didn't know what it
That,
was, though."
that's
Now I'm
how I
back.
was. That's how I was. Like, man, I didn't know. I would wake up in the middle of the night and just drowning. Like I couldn't catch my
I
breath.
swear.
Yeah, mate would barely make it to the bathroom, man. Just it felt like somebody threw me in a pool and I was drowning.
Right,
It's
right.
not, but I'm glad you feel better though, man. What's on
Yeah,
your mind?
yeah. So I really didn't have much to say. This is really directed towards Wani. I remember reaching back out to the sister in July. When I was still uh, fairly new to the spaces, and asking her because when you get up here and you hear people talk about the lineage and uh, them tracing and getting to know who their ancestors was and how they move. It's inspiring. So I just wanted to take this time out to thank Wani because she's one of the first people I reached out to. I was, comfortable enough to inbox and say, what's the process look like? Because a lot of us don't know. We hear people talk about, you know, tracing our lineage and going through the, whatever the steps are. Some of us don't know, and some of us learn and get encouraged to take those steps. And for anybody out there that hasn't done it yet, man, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me, man. Besides, of course, my children, but outside of that, man, just to be able to, and it's not easy, especially for somebody like me that never even tried to do it. Like she gave me links. She told me the steps that she really took. And I just kind of like, downloaded the Ancestry and just, started with my parents and, who do remember whatever they can remember. And just to make a long story short, because I don't want to ramble, but it kind of got some of my other family members engaged and just to show them what I uncovered these last few months. I mean, it blew some of their minds. They're like, how the hell where did you find this? How did you know this? And, it's just great, man. It's great to engage with the family. It's great to pass the knowledge down. And I'm not done. I got back as far as 18. As far as my grandparents, I got as far as 1855, and I got like a great uncle or aunt that can go back to 1827. So we going back to the 16, 7 as far as I could go, but I'm just encouraged. I'm gonna keep going. And yeah, I just wanted to thank Wani and thank everybody else that continue to speak power and the truth, because it continues to because it's not easy. You're gonna get roadblocks and barriers, you're gonna get frustrated, but at the end of the day, you take a step back, you breathe, and you just attack it. It's always and because we all got family members that's still alive, man. I know a little that could crack a little code to this, a little to that, and it's just great, man. Only regret is I ain't did it sooner. That's the only thing, man, because I had elders and stuff that I know took a lot of knowledge to the grave with them, man. And I'll never let that happen again with my youngins and my nieces and nephews. I'm a gather everything. I plan to do like a family reunion the next year or two and just have a whole PowerPoint on everything. Maybe people that can't come do it virtual, people that can get everybody together because that's what we all we got, man. And that's all I wanted to say. Peace, love. I'm out.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you took the time because it is tedious work, but you can do it.
Absolutely.
It's tedious looking it all up, but you can do it. And if I can do it, and I didn't even know my grandfather's names, Daddy and Pop is not helpful, but I literally they didn't say their name. What? I was never introduced to these people. Yeah, this is your Pop Pop. This is my daddy. Okay, who are you guys? I didn't know their names, and when I found their names, my cousins were like, that's our grandfather's name." It's quite a family project. We really like to do it together on the phone, and each person can participate and come up with a little piece, and we put the puzzle together. Still going. It's a long process, but we got back to 1799, so we're doing good.
Oh yeah. Um, I lost track. Who was next? Um, let's see. Drama. Have you spoke yet?
Yeah, hello.
What's on your mind, Drama?
Yeah, how you doing? This is my first time in this space. Um, I heard old guy, oh boy, when he came in, how he had all that vitriol in us, you know, against us FBAs. But I have a story that I wanted to tell everybody. Um, Growing up at the age of 17, me and my father, we really didn't have a close relationship, you know, and my mom, she told me, we were struggling. She was like, why don't you go, stay with your father, and see the job opportunities out there. So, well, okay, cool. So I go out there, I stay with him, and at that time, my father was married to a Kenyan woman. It was my first time ever being around an African. Uh, my family are all from LA, so I go there. I meet my half siblings. He had two children, two sons with this lady. I loved them to death. And then she also had her own son and everything. So I stayed there. She didn't have a problem with it at that time. I get a job within 2 days, start working at this warehouse in Colton, you know, and at that time I didn't see the hate that she had for me, and I didn't understand why. Um, Still don't. Never, never did. But I remember the conversation one time. I came home from work, um, and she was arguing with my father about me living there. I was taking care of their kids. She never worked. I was taking care of the kids, doing everything that they needed to do because my father was always gone working. And gave them an ultimatum: it's either she's gonna leave them or I leave. It's one or the other. And it was pretty fucked up because my father, of course, chose his family. Uh, Never understood it. We have a different culture from them also. They didn't like taking showers. Don't know why. Shit is crazy. And I still haven't talked to my father ever since then. I didn't have a son. He met him. And then after that, it was just like, I'm good off of you. So these people, some of them may be cool or they have this underlying hate for us, but I'm gonna just tell the family always keep your eyes open. keep your third eye open because these people they they hate us, and that's it. And I'm gonna drop out.
Very interesting. Thank you for your submission. We're gonna go to Kyrie. What's on your mind, Kyrie? Holler at us.
Hey, so I just wanted to just give you a little bit of information. I typed in once Native American groups were classified as Negro or Black, did they live amongst Black Americans or enslaved blacks? It said the classification of Native Americans as Negro or Black was a complex and intentional part of systematic racial categorization in the United States. It says the enslavement, some Native Americans were enslaved alongside African Americans, particularly in the early colonial period. It says over time, as African slavery became a dominant system, Native Americans increasingly faced displacement or were absorbed into black or enslaved populations. Misclassification as Negro or Black erased their distinct identities and made them subject to the same legal and social restrictions as African Americans. It says living amongst Black Americans, many Native Americans, particularly those who were reclassified as Negro or Black, lived and worked alongside African Americans, both enslaved and free. Um, so it's the legal and social implications. Misclassifications also had dire consequences. For example, Native Americans who were classified as Black could be enslaved or denied access to tribal lands and resources. In some cases, Native identity was deliberately erased to weaken tribal. Uh, I can't know. I don't know the name, but yeah, I'm just speaking to the topic. That's all, brother.
Kyrie, can you do me a favor? That was interesting, brother. Could you? What's the name of that book?
It's not a book, brother. It's actually Chat GBT. I really don't know if we're supposed to trust these things or not, but it just was a
I use
question I
it,
Oh
had.
wait,
I
they
use it as
cite
a
sources on it
research.
though.
I use it as a reference. I might check, triple check it against something else if it's important. But
Right, that's
it's
it. No,
a,
no, don't
yeah.
beat yourself. Don't beat yourself up. That's good to use it. Like Wani said, use it and then look for another source to back it up. Generally, if I have three respected scholars admit to something, I'll say that has a high probability of being true. But I appreciate your scholarship. It's a start. True new. What's on your mind?
Peace, Professor. Peace, Wani. Happy belated birthday, Wani.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was out and about, real busy. I couldn't even come to the spaces like I wanted to. So, but hey, Tractor, what part of the burg you from, bro?
Say that again. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
What part of the city you from?
Homewood, East Side.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm from the north side, bro. I've been in Atlanta for about 15 years. So I've been 15 in the burg, 15 in Atlanta, but all my people's from the hill, bro. And I
Yeah,
just wanted to let everybody know, like, being from Pittsburgh, we deliberately are not taught about the Black history in Pittsburgh. We're deliberately left out of this conversation. And like when I tell you, I went 15 years not even knowing what an HBCU was. It took me to come to Georgia to my cousin to tell me like there's Black colleges. I ain't even know that that was true. Like I'm trying to tell you, I had white teachers tell me like you need to go to IUP or you need to go over there to Philly. Didn't even know there was HBCUs in Philly. So I just wanted to let you know, Track, that you'll link with me because there's a lot of us from the Berg really doing this work. You know what I'm saying? Because it's coming full circle, bro. You know what I'm saying? Real talk. You know, the Weidmans in Homewood, them was my peoples. You know, John Weidman over there on Finance Street. You know, them was my peoples over there. So, you know, we could tap in. But I wanted to say I put something in the purple pill uh about the Indian slavery and colonial times. They said in the book, I'm gonna paraphrase it. You can read it for yourself. But basically, they were saying that after Bacon's rebellion, that's when um, it was legal to start using Indians granting making them as captives, and then they also when the basically when the government tried to outlaw it, what they the agreement that they came to was that each colony could sell the Indian captives for for profit. So they basically that's kind of like also how they mixed them in, like you were saying, brother, with the reclassification. During after Bacon's rebellion, it was legal to make to capture Native Americans, our ancestors, and turn them into slaves. So I wanted to say that, um, as well as Professor. I put some information in there about Pangea in there for you. They said it was a meteorologist who observed the motion of the seafloor, and because he didn't have the credentials as a geologist, they tried to write him off. But then years later, they came up with this idea of Pangea, and they only made it a theory. And then there was this guy named Harry Hess, who was a geologist and who validated the meteorologist work. That was all the way in 1912. Um, and I also wanted to ask you, Professor. I know you talk about your history and your relationship to that school in Cambridge. I want to know if you ever came across a certain gentleman named, this kind of off topic, but Henry Louis Gates Jr.
Oh, Professor Gate. Yeah, I didn't take a class by him, but I know of him very well. Yeah,
Yeah.
what do you want to know about him? They call him Skip. He's called himself Skip Gates,
Skip.
and and they refer to him as Skip the Truth Gates.
Yeah. Yeah, he's this year. I think it's so interesting that this year, like a few years ago, when 80OS and FBA was like getting going viral. I don't know if you guys remember, there was this tut. The language had went viral, and a lot of people, including myself, first learned about it in like 2021, 2022. Well, Oxford commissioned him and got him to write a dictionary through Oxford called the Oxford Dictionary of African American English, and it's
Wow.
be released this year. So the research started from 2022 to now, and it's being released this year. And I just think that's so interesting with the movement of foundational Black Americans and the awakeness and the consciousness that not only are they putting out this movie of Sarah Rector. If you guys know who Sarah Rector is, the woman who inherited the girl, little black girl who inherited all this land in Oklahoma in the early 1900s, and she was the foundation of Black America, and she inherited all these land. They're making a movie about her on the December 25th this year, and guess who they got playing her? A little Haitian girl, and
Wow.
and then on top of that, Henry Gates with the book. I just think it's very interesting that Hollywood. We see Hollywood and academia taking notice to what is going on, and what that the African dude try to say, oh y'all in these Twitter spaces, but look at the impact, look at the ripple effect that's going on in these institutions. So I just wanted to say that, man. Keep doing what you're doing, Professor. I really appreciate everything that you and y'all doing. You, Wani, and Nikki, I really, really appreciate it. So,
Well, I really appreciate your submission because it was powerful, ladies and gentlemen. What True News said basically was a foundational black man has been hired to introduce a poisonous idea to the collective. Now, when you said that, I thought back to the Willie Lynch issue with respect to how do you break a horse? How do you horses are really hard to break, but the way you break a horse is you don't break the I think they're called colts. You don't break the wild horse himself. You break his mother, and the when the mother has a baby, the mother will train the horse to respect you, right? So I that you made me thinking about that with Skip the Truth Gates, because that book, if Merriam-Webster or Britannica just introduced, hey, check this out, ladies and gentlemen, we have a new African American um, a dictionary, urban dictionary, whatever it's called. we would all go, our alerts would go up. We all get suspicious, like, what this about? Oh man, what's going on with this? So they hire somebody who looks like us to introduce poison into the culture. Now, gratefully, a lot of us scholars don't trust um, Dr. Gates, namely because Dr. Uh, John Henry Clark couldn't stand them. So there is John Henry Clark, like Tariq Nasheed always says, warned us about him. They call him Skip the Truth, and they warned us all about him. He really pissed Dr. Clark off because he went to University of Saint Croix and Timbuktu, and was up in there walking around with a Harvard T-shirt on. You know, come on now. But great submission, I love it. The Black, what's on your mind?
Another person that didn't like Skip Gates was the great Steve Coakley.
Oh, right.
He warned us about him. Him in this one reason why I didn't really fully get behind Cornell West, because Steve Coakley didn't trust him either, because of the that book, Black and Jews, that he was trying to discredit, that the Nation of Islam had wrote about the Jewish involvement in the slave trade. And funny enough, uh, that got a lot of our great scholars that we revere today uh, banned and pushed out of the educational sector. But I want to ask Ronnie, did did you by chance get a chance to watch that video I sent you about the Native Americans talking about their influence in blues?
Uh,
Cause I point that out
I
because
don't.
it's so funny to
I
me.
can't.
Cause these folks,
But I
every example of
my nerves cannot take any
I
more of
I
these
can't handle
freaks.
it.
I already had to listen to Inuit jazz. I'm still recovering from that. It's a thing. Why are they doing this? Get some music and play it.
But what's crazy is the fact that every example of the people that they say they got their sound or their rhythm from was a black person. That's that's what kept make me like. And then the way they explain stuff, and how they try to explain away the black influence. Like, you can tell that they lying and they just going with the flow, trying to come up
It's
with
too
something.
late. They're not even associated. They don't have all these, like, one there's a guy in the UK, he's white. Of course, white people in the UK did not create jazz, but he's over there saying that white men created jazz. And the white people are like, "Well, how come you're not the greatest players of jazz?" And like, why is it over in the United States, and like why are these black people playing it? And why are they all the stars and the award winners? And he's just sitting there lying out of his face.
And like you were saying, brother the black, to build on what you're saying, most of the names of these genres wasn't even coined by us to speak back to the space. A lot of these genres names came from other races of people trying to join in there, and then they try to label it so that they could kind of have some sort of control over it. That's what Erica Badu was saying with neo soul. She was saying none of them accepted the word neo soul. She said that's what the industry had put on them. They called them neo soul, but really what they was trying to go for was acid jazz.
Mm, excuse me.
Well,
And the name, and it's really just a modern version of fusion jazz. Acid
Hmm.
jazz is just a modern version of fusion jazz. That's all.
that's the same thing that they did with so-called contemporary R&B, or adult R&B, as they label it now. The real version of R&B, like the neo soul that we call today. It's crazy how they try to regenre the music that we say we are creating.
Yeah, yeah. It's a co-opting of anything we do that has power in it. It has to be um, co-opted immediately. It reminds me of like the functions of a virus in biology. They the virus goes to good cells and it turns it into more virus. It's interesting to look at.
James.
Hey, peace
What's
and
up, Jen?
blessings to the room and to you great scholars. Thank you. And to even piggyback off to what the brother CXLF2 was talking about the Native American. Now, my grandmother and my grandmother on my mother's side is from Griffin, Georgia, as well as my grandfather. And I can remember them telling me about my little small town being a prison state where the slaves were, when we was having those rebellions, in Django Eagle, when Samuel L. Jackson was telling them they're gonna hit you on the chop your tongue off and send you down south. They was talking about my hometown. And I can remember my grandfather asking me, how you gonna have a state with a sheriff, a deputy, and uh and a chief of police in every county in the entire state. So there's some truth to that GPT chat. That's and I'll land with that.
Yeah, I used Chat GPT earlier in my lecture, and something was off. So it's just best to cross reference it. Don't. But then again, you should never rely on one source too heavy. I got a couple sources that are like golden to me, but generally, you want more than one source on the same issue to cross reference, like Wani said.
I use it all the time, and it helps if you log in. I don't know why. It says you get better answers if you log in. But I argue with it, I fight with it, challenge it. I say why it will give you bad answers. So you need to cross-reference it because it'll say something. Because I was saying, are these herbs from Egypt? And it was like, yep. And it was like, no, it's not. I gave it a list of herbs. I said, are these from Egypt? And it was like giving me the wrong answers, telling me things were from Egypt. And I was like, wait a minute. This is not a native herb to Egypt. But whatever, it will give you wrong answers. However, 99% of the time, it's, you know, it's pretty much on point if you log in.
Well, today it let me down because I was talking about. I had a really dynamic lecture about the Georgia colony, the Georgia Corporation, and I asked Chat GPT. I'm asked about Captain James Oglethorpe, and Chat GPT said bold letters: the Georgia was not created as a debtor colony. I was like, that's a
Mhm.
goddamn lie. It was. Like, why would you say that?
I forgot it does have agendas too.
It has agendas. Hell
It
yeah.
does. You have to fight with it sometimes.
And Wani, I didn't even ask it that. It's like it volunteered it.
It'll do that too. I'll say
Oh, racist
it's
AI.
racist, and I'll say check the punctuation because I use Grammarly, but I use that too because I like three versions, and it'll rewrite it. I was like, when did I say rewrite it? Check the punctuations. Gets stubborn, wants to box you,
Mm.
and put in the wrong words just to be changing something. Like if you give it a sentence that's perfect, because I'll say check the punctuation, doesn't like that if your sentence is perfect. It'll try to change something. It doesn't want to say, yeah, it's perfect. Have a nice day. It doesn't want to say that. It wants to give you some information that you didn't ask for.
That
I,
you
I
didn't ask for.
I know a lot about this because I've used it, a lot.
Yeah, you've been using it forever.
Yep, I use it
I just
regularly.
started.
I got
I'm,
some other ones. There's another one called, hold on, let me give you this one. There's another one called Perplexity. I use it sometimes just to, see what it says,
mm,
just for fun. There's another one called deepai.org. Now, this one is pretty good, but it makes my laptop crash. It has so many ads, but it's still good. I'll just double check some of the things that the other one will say. And it catches some errors.
and what's it called? One more time, writing it down.
Deep
What was it called, Wani?
or
Oh, deep.
Deep,
AI,
deep AI.
DEEPAI.org.
Right on.
Like I said, I like the information that it gives, and it's very clean, but it just has all those ads that kind of overburden your computer.
No cap.
Now, I don't use Chat GPT at all. Now, mind you, these were things that was told to me by my grandmother and my grandfather who lived in this state and that can remember back so far that had that knowledge. Now, but I do appreciate the information on you telling me where to cross reference because now I know where to go when I go back to my hometown and go to the library and start looking at these archives.
Right. There you go. There you go. Another thing, try to if you find a big enough library, look at try to find you can find archived documents in microfiche in the the reference section. They have stuff that you can look through. You know, I like old information, and I try to stay away from digitized information because if you digitize it, you can alter it. They have very brilliant software right now to alter digitized software, and a lot of colleges, especially historically black colleges, are moving away from real books and going to software and going to electronic media, which is a big no-no. But yeah, but I think Black Americans, I think we're heading in the right direction. Furthermore, in addition, I still got about 80 copies of my book. If you're interested, you can purchase it on our store by going to our story publications. I guess I put it in Jumbotron. I put $25 on the Cash App, and I will and put your full address, mailing address, and I'll mail you a copy. I'm putting it in the Jumbotron now.
Hey, Professor. Uh,
Yes, sir.
I sent you the this latest episode of the Boulay series that my kinfolk working on. I think you might like it. No, I said it's called the Black Face of White Power. Look,
Oh man.
look,
Woo!
it will make you think. Know what I'm saying? Because it breaks down the G.W. Griffin movie. Know what I'm saying? The Klansman or the I forgot what they changed the name to, but it was originally made from the book The Klansman. But it used a lot of, know what I'm saying, primary sources and uh things from the director and the people who wrote the book. So if you watch it, tell me what you think about it next time we you build a space.
Oh, no cap, man. And we're gonna have to talk on the back channel about that, man. I worked at a historically black college for 3.5 years, and I seen how that shit operated. But you know what? I'm not crazy enough to say it on space. Anyway, I'm gonna leave that alone. Anybody want to contribute? Because you're dealing with power, is what you're dealing with that.
No, for real, you're right. And it's crazy because when you read these memoirs of a lot of these politicians from back in the day, or just autobiographies of some of these people, and get how they really felt during the time period, it makes you look at the movements of that time period differently. And you could tell that a lot of people just did it to maintain power or to maintain the status quo without knowing, saying, ending up in the dirt.
Oh yeah, there it is. And I got a really interesting book, a rare book that talks about societies after slavery and how certain societies were created for us, to manage us after the slave trade. This whole power domination dynamic is well thought out. It's not clumsy. I urge everybody, if you can, to read The Shaping of Black America, a very hard book to find, by the way, by Lerone Bennett. Lerone Bennett shows you that um, the Europeans perfected the slave trade on each other. And I think if people knew that, they knew that Europeans got the slave trade right on each other before they used it on us. That, I mean, a lot is said in that. You know what I'm saying? That you would do that to your own people. That'll let people know. Let us know what we're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? We're dealing with, because a lot of time we get thrown off by that smile. I got a good a good friend. Wani, I said a good friend who showed me this TV show called From. Have anybody here seen
Wink,
From?
wink, nod, nod.
Wink, wink,
Man,
no, no.
I like that show.
Yeah,
You've
like
seen it.
Yeah.
I gotta
You-
watch it.
Oh, you know the like the
I've
monsters.
been too busy.
It's a good show.
Hmm.
very good.
Look, but that look,
The
Jordan Peele shows or the movies he make that them, that's I feel like everybody should watch that.
Okay. Did Jordan Peele did he produce that?
Yeah, they the movie them, I mean the show them, it's on Prime. It breaks
Okay.
down the black people going towards the west, towards California. And it's crazy because his stuff got a whole lot of hidden meanings, and then it adds spirituality and kind of like some psychic shit. But it kind of makes you think about like the post traumatic slave syndrome and like the trauma passed down through generations, because they having flashbacks of their their previous the previous generation and the things that they was going through. Know what I'm saying? And it was like combining the two and what they was going through during the current time with the group of white folks they was dealing with.
Yeah. His stuff is, you know what I'm saying? All right. Anybody else want to contribute?
Eastwood.
Yes, ma'am. Hey, good evening. Well, good morning to some, Professor Wani, and everyone else attending the space. Um, I'm kind of tuning in late, but you guys were talking about researching and finding sources and stuff. I just wanted to share a good source is if you search Google Scholar, I think the official name is scholar.google. Um, you search that and you put in any topic, and it'll give you articles, give you books, give you all kinds of stuff.
Oh
So,
yeah. Yeah. Thank you, brother. I just found out the PWI teacher taught us that. I didn't know. He's right. Google Scholar is a good resource. Excellent. But
yes,
Yes,
sir.
it is.
we got to
That
be
Internet
careful.
Archive all I use.
Which one?
That in the Internet Archive and probably Project Gutenberg to
Mm-hmm.
find older books.
Mm-hmm.
We got to kind of be careful with those type of data. Use them at nauseum. But those type of databases, I used to be an aerospace education officer. I was a computer guy, and I would train my cadets on how to make those systems. Believe it or not, I don't really brag on this, but I know how to make it. The program software is called a chat bot, and it's not as difficult as you think to make. But the reason why I brought that up was to let you know that you can program the chat bot to be biased, like Wani was talking about. Like I've looked up Captain James Oglethorpe in a AI in Chat GPT, and it immediately in bold letters on my big screen said Georgia was not a debtor colony. I'm like, I didn't ask you that, and I often wonder, was it doing that so my students would see that? You know what I'm saying? Like these things are really well thought out. Like, I thought you said, Dr. A, I thought you said it was a debtor colony. Chat GPT says it wasn't. I'm really concerned with AI because these algorithms are very. We did a study at in Memphis, and I talked about it with porn. How it was shown by the Department of Psychology that porno is lowering the birth rates, and not just the black community. It's really in all communities, especially the white male community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's doing it with algorithms. So um,
What do you mean?
these algorithms. What do I mean? I mean algorithms are showing you. They're basically these algorithms are created kind of mimic addictive psychology. So they target what you like. So and let's say what's a good example? Let's say you like sport.
Remember when Christy Brinkley's husband was spending $30,000 a month on
Oh
porn,
yeah,
and people were like, "How? If it's so much of it is free, how is this man spending this much on porn? What is he looking at that hard?
man, that's funny.
God, what an
Yeah,
idiot!"
it finds out. Yeah, it's free and it's free. It finds out what you like, and it just hones in on specific aspects of what you like,
Oh, I see what you mean.
and it gets more and more
Now,
specific. And I mean, you're dealing with a computer system that could look at, okay, what does he like? He like red hair, he like black hair. What age group does he like? You know, and it targets it, targets it, target, and it's the way it targets it mimics addiction. Like, go ahead.
now, I looked up the Georgia colony, and it does say yes, the Georgia colony is a colonial American, uh, founded as a debtor colony. So it does admit to it. I wonder why it's doing not doing it sometimes and doing it another time.
It did in front of my students. It said Georgia was not.
Ridiculous.
Yep.
Wow.
Go ahead, Actify.
I just one of the many fires that started on my timeline was um, and where are HBCUs when it comes to our fight for reparations? What should they be doing? And I went to Chat GPT and I asked a simple question. No, this was just Google, whatever their AI is. I forget what it's called. A simple question. I said, when the black community is under social and political attack, what should the HBCUs be doing? Because to my mind, that's one of the reasons why HBCUs were created to get us out of trouble when we're in trouble, right? Um, and of course, before I did went to the AI, I posed this question to the timeline, and of course, as we all know, you mentioned HBCUs. HBCU grads come out of the fucking woodwork. Mind your business. You didn't go to HBCU. Blah 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 blah. Well, anyway, I posed this question to the AI, and it spit out like 3 pages of shit that HBCUs could and should be doing, from research to lobbying to, just a whole list of shit. And I'm like, we got over 100 of these fucking things, and nobody has gotten active. Something is fucking wrong.
They
Something is deeply wrong.
they're foreign. They have no interest in
Yeah, that's
advocating
definitely
for us. They're all taken over by foreigners.
Yep.
that's definitely part of it. But I look at all this stuff that's going on with us, and so many. It is just obvious that we're being erased in real time, and it's like nobody gives a fuck. And I guess really that's really what it is, that nobody gives a fuck. But it just seems, I don't know, again, maybe being naive. It's just weird to me that had the had the reparations movement and the adjacent delineation movement, had we not gotten moving, we would be in fucking trouble right now. That's it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We're dealing with a lot of people that don't have a culture to preserve. Just like when other Europeans come over here, they tuck right under to the European to the English way of life. They don't care if they're Polish, they just give it up. The only people that resist are Italians, maybe a Greek person or so, but for the most part, they just go along with it. These people came here and they didn't even speak English. We were walking around speaking English in fine attire, in three-piece suits, and they got off of a lice infested ship, didn't know how to spell their names. didn't know how to spell their own names, illiterate, unable to speak their language, and of course, that's going to make it hard to speak English. They have always been looking at us crazy. We have a long history here, and we've been speaking English longer than a lot of these immigrants. We've been speaking English longer than Italians here, and Polish people, and all the rest of them, except for the English. We came in on speaking English in the middle of that language's evolution. We've been here a long time, and let's not forget that.
Oh yeah, and I want to remind y'all what Dr. Howard Zinn said about immigrants on page 226 of People's History. Hey, Nikki, he said immigrants from Ireland fleeing starvation there when the potato crop failed were coming to America now packed into old sailing ships. On page 227, Dr. Zinn says, how could these new Irish immigrants, themselves poor and despised, become sympathizers with the black slave who is becoming more and more the center of attention, the subject of agitation in the country? That's what happens. Is like, a group comes over here that's from abject poverty and starvation, a war torn country, which I remind you is none of our damn fault. I don't want anybody to hurt. I don't want anybody to be in trouble, but I got my own problems. I got my own family to worry about, right? It's y'all. It's not an immigrant. But what Dr. Zen is positing is that the system uses immigrants to come at us. Listen to what Dr. Zen says. He says, indeed, most working class activists at the time ignored the plight of the blacks. Eli Moore, a New York trade union leader elected to Congress, argued in the House of Representatives against receiving abolitionist petitions. Dr. Zen closes with racist hostility became an easy substitute for class frustration. Now, what does that mean? That means that you get a group in Ireland or wherever, but we're talking about Irish. Dr. Zen's talking about Irish. Let's do it. In Ireland, mad, hungry, can't grow potatoes, and a representative from the U.S. says, "Hey, come over here. I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna give you another chance, but you need to hold these blacks down." The Irish fill the slave patrols up. Um, Racial hostility became an easy substitute for what do you say? But basically, what that means is instead of focusing on your problem, he says racist hostility became an easy substitute for class frustration. Instead of trying to focus on your problem, you look at those colored folk, look at the blacks. I almost said Dr. Tariq Nasheed, which would have been very appropriate. Tariq Nasheed the other day said that in another way. He said that, and I agree. Tariq said that if it wasn't for us, these other groups would fucking kill each other. We're the best thing to happen to these groups because we give them, like Dr. Zen just said, another thing to focus on. In the moment we are completely delineated and we fall back into our own little enclaves and get out of sight, get out of mind, they're gonna devour each other. David Banner said that too. David Banner said that European culture is so parasitic that if we get out the way, they're just going to destroy each other.
Yeah, we're the escape valve of the pressure
Yep.
cooker.
Yes, sir. And we've had enough. I ain't seen a pressure cooker in so long. I used to be scared. My auntie had one. I was scared to death of that damn thing. I just knew that shit was gonna blow up one day.
Yeah, no eyebrows.
Oh,
Your
Professor,
eyebrows.
you black black.
Oh yeah, people getting thrown off by me because I'm light skinned, curly hair, hazel eyes, and I wear bow ties and fancy blazers and shit. They hire me on the job, and oh, I got him. Hey, how you doing? And I'm like, what it do? They get confused. Like, wait a minute, I thought you were one of us. Nope, I'm one of them.
Dun dun dun.
Hey, this kind of like white people finding out that Michael Jackson really had a black side. Yeah, he was just using his work voice, people.
Yeah, he showed it, man, when he because he turned on the system, when they put them charges on him. He's like, oh, okay, let's play. Let me show you how to play.
Hey,
Remember when he was telling his brother off that time on the stage? He went from the high voice and he's like, if you don't get your ass out of here. I was like, damn, it's still in there.
His one of Joe Jackson's closest friends was Ron Newt, who was like a real notorious pimp, and he was made a lot of money through the streets. But yeah, he says Ron Newt says in an interview that the smooth criminal that Michael Jackson was talking about was him. He said before Mike, he the one that had all the animals in his house and all the like everything about his lifestyle is what Michael Jackson kind of put into his imagery. So yeah, he was around them. He was around some guys.
I mean, when you really think about
Can
it,
you
Michael
imagine
house
what we could
was
have?
like a rich nigga house. I mean, it was like a drug dealer paradise if you want to think about it. He did the same thing Mike Tyson did. He got him a tiger, some giraffes. He made the animal kingdom in his backyard.
El Chapo did it too. Yep.
But say, Professor,
El Chapo's hippos is still killing people in South America
man.
today.
But say, Professor, to add to your point, when it comes down to the education in black people, and I like that you always bring up after the Civil War how our people were smart enough to choose a drunk, cause
Yeah, we knew that we were finessing them.
cause just South Carolina alone, 50 Negroes was added to the Senate, but 22 of them could read and write. It makes me think like, how can people just say we was just fully illiterate when you can really prove that most of these immigrants that came over here, like Wani said, they couldn't even spell their name. They couldn't spell Kogloskly and Faflosley. So white people just gave them a name at the border. Yeah, you're Frederman now. You're Zoomerman now. Cause we can't say this shit.
No cap. Yeah, I'm glad we're starting
It's
to really wake up to that.
especially the Polish names, because if the Polish people couldn't really speak it or spell their names, nobody knew all those consonants chunked up together like that. It wasn't a familiar look. So they did give them, uh, a lot of people had anglicized names. They did it on their own or somebody did it for them.
Yep, this is gonna be our year, ladies and gentlemen. The year of the nine, the year of completion. This we're done with the tomfoolery. We're done being scapegoated. You know, we've been scapegoated so long. It's time for other groups to hold their own jewels, man. And stop feeding off of us. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I enjoy. Oh,
Man,
go ahead.
people.
No, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. No, I'm just saying. Yeah, it's going to get ugly, but I think a lot of us are prepared for it. I wonder. I often wonder how long it's going to be before we start really waking up. And I recognize, like Tariq was saying the other night, that the more these other folks talk about FBA or talk about us as a distinct group, and the more other people, more importantly, more other people push back against it, that's waking a lot more of
Mm-hmm.
us up than people give credit to. Because that, I mean, well, we've all been through it. I was never really Pan Africanist, but I was, all black people are my people, sort of thing. But to find out how vile these people have been, you do the research, they've been at it for a long time. There just wasn't enough of them to make a big difference. Speaking specifically of the Caribbeans and Africans, and how long these people have hated us and resented the fact that we were like the spoiled children of Africa. That we have all of this and all of that, and they have nothing, while standing on top of the richest reserves of damn near everything. And they talk about what we
Right.
have. It's just a weird ass dynamic.
Yeah. Well,
I guess because we already did the hard work.
yeah.
That's what
Well,
it
I give
is.
you a good analogy. It's just like a dam. You cracked it. You just put a crack in that motherfucker, and it just exponentially crack. A little bit more crack. A little bit more. By the time water squirting out of it, it's over with. So that's what's the crack in the dam is the delineation. I am foundational. I have a name. Um, Literature changed dramatically, and you made me think of an excellent closing analogy. Literature changed dramatically with Mark Twain. I think it was Huckleberry Finn when he named him. What was it? Wani, was it Nigger John? Was that it? The guy, the character in Huck Finn. Uh, it was
Think it's something
Nigger Tom, maybe.
with the N
Yeah,
in the
nigga, John.
front.
Excuse
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's
yeah.
Oh
Tom. Yeah.
Lord.
Well, I mean,
Oh
I
my
don't know
goodness.
shit. Let me
but
shut up.
yeah, that changed everything, because he gave a black person, a foundational black American in the book, a name, when before then it was always the helper. They didn't have a name. So is there power in naming? Hell yeah. Just by nigga Tom getting a name in this character in a book, that opened the door to give more foundational black Americans a name. I read some shit on Mark Twain. They were like, his life was so weird. Like they don't even know who he was. But yeah, but that's the power of naming. Kanye, I'm gonna give you last words.
Oh, I was just
Are
letting
you
you
going
know
to
it was
give?
nigga Jim.
Nigga Tim. Okay. Was it
Tim.
I,
No, Jim.
Jim,
nigga
Jim.
Jim?
Tim.
Nigga Jim.
None of these sound right.
Yeah, it's been
Maybe I don't like the first name.
No, it was nigga Jim. I remember because I remember they tried to have us read it, and I
Clyburn.
remember that was the first time I ever staged a protest, and I went to the
Wait,
principal.
where did you go to protest, Kanye?
Ooh, well, I went to the principal first, and he was bullshitting. So
Oh,
you said what now?
oh,
yeah. I,
oh, that sounds like you. That sounds like
Oh yeah,
Kanye.
no, I went to the principal, then I went to the superintendent, then I went to the newspaper, and they forgot another book for us to read.
yeah, I read it in high school. I went to a PWI, real racist high school, and I remember being like offended by it as well. But I didn't comprehend what, like, why you saying the N word in this book? But I didn't understand why. The reason it was tactical. He was showing the power of a name. It was like, I'm gonna name this black man right here. This black man has a goddamn name. He's a man. He's not boy. He's not waiter on the left. You know. So that there it is. Is there power in naming? Hell yeah. What's my name? Foundational Black American. Deal with that shit. All right. Anybody have any closing remarks?
No, I hate that I missed most of the space, but I'm at work. But
Hey Nikki, how you
I guess
doing?
I have to catch the replays. Oh, peace,
Yeah,
y'all.
peace.
I guess I ain't trying to center myself, but this is an excellent topic, and I can't wait to catch the
You're gonna
replays.
love it. I've really been educated. I'm very excited and honored to be in the presence of so many up and coming scholars. It's getting to the point now. I'm sure Wani will attest that me and Wani are learning more than we're teaching, and that I can't tell y'all
I
how
love
good
it.
that it makes me feel so wonderful, man. Man, I love y'all for that.
Happy belated
Queen
birthday,
D,
one.
Thank you.
I got you, man.
come
My
on,
taxes
Queen,
here. I'm broke right now.
come on.
I just want to say I know the subject changed like 20 times.
Okay,
Um,
It's
but
That's
this
that's
my
time
probably
I
fault.
my
think
That's
fault.
my
maybe
I'm
fault. My
ADHD.
bad.
no, it's okay. We've been talking about porn and then back to naming people.
oh my
So
Lord.
Oh
um
shit,
Oh
what was
my
going on in
God.
here?
I want
Porn.
to comment.
I had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I just
Uh,
Oh
heard.
my
Well,
God.
no, Professor. Well, everybody saying, "Oh my God!" Like Professor was talking about porn. What I was about to say,
Amen.
yeah,
not
we did a
like
study
that.
on it, but anyway, yeah,
Um,
blame it on me.
oh God, now y'all looking at me like I'm weird. What I was about to say.
You're not.
What does porn have to do with
No, because he
naming
was
You got to
talking
somebody?
catch the
about
replay,
like
Nikki.
addiction. Like it's an addiction. Is an addiction,
It
and that
is.
is why the birth rate has lowered.
I don't have a
And
problem. I
I
go to
think
meetings.
that that has to do with fantasy as well. A lot of people, they're like, they like fantasy of things, and they want to fight some, and they know that in hell that ain't gonna
A
happen.
Pfizer?
I'm just
well,
making
well,
up
Oh,
stuff.
I never heard no
Damn.
Pfizer.
That's a
Damn.
And my five.
That's
What
off the
channel are you
top of
looking
my
at?
That's a
that's off the
party,
top of
ain't
my head. Come on now. I'm just
What
well,
thinking
So
some
that's what
algorithm
you
you
thinking
fantasy
about
checking?
all
stuff.
day?
Sister.
I get
I'm
bored.
it?
thinking of
Sure
some
is.
fantasy stuff
You
that would
check
be
your
on
search
oh
history.
my god.
That's some nigga
I
stuff.
can't keep up with
fantasy.
it.
That's a good point, Nini, because fantasy is in looking back at history. Fantasy is indicative of end of empire. If you think it,
Mm.
if you look at Rome, when Rome was about to collapse, the Caesar Caligula came out with the I forget the name of it, but it was the Latin name, but it's bread and circus. Basically, it was entertainment at the end to keep people's mind off the fact that they couldn't eat. I equate that bread and circus to
That sound
reality.
like a Diddy party. Wait, so wait, hold on. Can you
What
explain
in
that?
the hell
So
is
it was
happening
like
in
a
here?
party and then they had like some sexual stuff. Is that what you're saying, Professor?
Oh
Right
Lord.
on.
Baby,
Hey, how you doing?
Somebody said sex.
No, I'm so no, I'm
well, back
sorry.
then it would be well blubber.
It was well done. Well,
Oh my God. What does well blubber and porn have to do with the naming of this space?
Huh?
My God.
Y'all
These
nasty.
No,
episodes.
we were talking. You know how you talking about a subject and then that subject lead to another subject? No, we're not. It's not about porn. Professor was talking
No,
about
I
how
just
porn has lowered the birth rate. And
no,
so we are
the second
talking
I'm
about
gone,
how that it
y'all
can
acting
be.
bad.
oh
The
Lord.
second I'm gone, y'all start acting
Well,
bad.
Okay, let's change the subject.
Yeah,
They
ladies
not
and
acting.
gentlemen,
I
I
have
They
gotta
not
something
acting.
else
run.
to say about GPT. Y'all gotta be
Okay.
careful with this because you have to remember it is a person that writes these programs. So a person is telling the computer what to do. So as the professor Ms. Wani said, it's not always reliable. You
Right.
have to have more than one source like you do in college. You have to basically think of having like five references before you can actually come up with the correct answer. Think of it as making a research paper. You gotta have references.
Right
So
on.
that's all I have to say.
All right,
Y'all have a blessed night.
ladies and gentlemen, I enjoyed y'all. I'm gonna see y'all again tomorrow. I gotta run. Um, um, Wani, you had any last words?
Wink, wink, nod, nod. I mean, good night.
You silly. Bye bye. Bye, y'all. See y'all later. Peace
Good
out.
night, everybody.
Peace.
Out, y'all.
Peace.